Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The Market Open. We are live and we are back in the studio. We're here officially on the last day of March. It is very, very nice to get back from traveling. Although it was only a couple days because it was Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It feels, given all the traveling with GTC and Robinhood and Palantir and AIPCon and all these events, that we are finally back in the studio and we have some actual time, at least a month and a half, to be in the studio, back to the bricks, and we are officially here. We have so much to talk about. We got a green pre-market, which is nice, and there is once again a Trump tweet and a Wall Street Journal headline to explain why we have a green pre-market, which yesterday was the exact same thing. The green faded away. We ended up going red. We've been through this game a billion times at this point. Hopefully today's a little bit different. Not really going to count on it, but I mean, if it is, it would be nice. So we will talk about all the implications of what happened based on Trump's tweet last night and based on kind of this Wall Street Journal interview headline around potentially leaving the region of the Middle East without opening the Strait of Hormuz. And the credibility towards the headline comes from Trump's tweet this morning, where he kind of basically said, we don't need to open the Strait of Hormuz. So, you know, the markets from a sort of economic objective interpretation are like, okay, cool. We don't need to worry about the war escalating if potentially Trump doesn't need to open up the Strait of Hormuz. Obviously, Iran would open up the Strait of Hormuz if we left the region, likely because they would want to make more oil money. But if we don't need to force them to open it and deal with ground troops and military operations, that is why the pre-markets are going green, based on the idea that, once again, the perception of this concept of a war might come to an end sooner than what people are thinking. Amazon, that's up. NBIS up 5%. We got some updates on that. ASTS is up 3%. CoreWeave's up 5%. Ondas is up 2%. Microsoft's up 2%. Micron, not up as much as it should be. You would think this one is up a lot more, given it took the brunt of the beating yesterday, down 10%, but that one's doing okay. IGV's up 2%. You got Carnival Cruise up, CrowdStrike up, Zeta, SPY, Nvidia, Hood, Reddit, all of these up almost 1% to 2%. S&P 500 right there, up about 1.17. Question will be if it can hold. Question will be if it can hold, and we will talk throughout the day to see if it does have a chance to hold. LA meetup, it was awesome. I'll talk more about it towards the end of the market open today. Again, was a great time and really enjoyed it. Hopefully everyone that came to the meetup enjoyed. Chicago is next. The link is in the description for Chicago. And I think just myself and the team are getting a better understanding and a swing of how to run these things. And, you know, we've done 2 of them, New York and LA. And so I'm actually not as nervous for the next meetup, because there's always a little bit of nerves and anxiety of the logistics and how to structure it and to make it go well. But, you know, once you've done it a couple times, just like streaming, once you've done it a couple times, you know, now we've been doing it for like 3 years, the nerves start to go away because it becomes a routine, it becomes a system, it becomes a structure. And so very excited for Chicago and Singapore, and we'll have updates on the UK and Texas later this year. But yeah, super fun, super exciting for those that are coming to Chicago. Excited for that. And hopefully we have a bit of a more bullish market going into Chicago. Again, there's a lot of hopes and dreams I'm selling every morning with these Trump tweets and the price action to correspond to that. And you know, now we just need to see that follow through. But if it does follow through, you know, maybe we get a little bit more momentum and we see if things can go in the right direction. It's also freaking green outside. Like it's hot. It's like 60 degrees. I took a walk this morning. I haven't been able to take a walk in New Jersey in the morning in a very long time. So in general, it just feels better on the Northeast. And as we head into April, hopefully we get to keep this 60, 70 degree weather. And, you know, in general, that makes the mood a little bit lighter, especially because, you know, coming from LA, the weather was amazing. And so hopefully that can continue on to the East Coast. All right, so let's get into it. Again, thank you everybody for being here. Yes, we do have Nike earnings today. That will be after the bell. I believe today is Tuesday, so we will have Technical Tuesday today. I will confirm with Jason, but we do have Nike earnings today. And we will see if Nike can put up some numbers. They've been in a bit of a slump even after the tariff reversal. Nike right there, 51.97 in the pre-market, down about 15% for the year. So we'll see if they can put up some numbers and hopefully change a bit more of that narrative. Good morning, everybody. Again, thank you all for being here. Let's get started and let's get into it. So why are we pumping? Why are we green? Well, Mr. Donnie T tweeted, and he tweeted something that has got the street relatively excited. So last night, the Wall Street Journal put out a headline saying Trump is telling his aides that he's willing to end the war without reopening Hormuz, which again, that's a good de-escalatory sort of event, because at that point, if you end the war and Hormuz isn't open, you don't have to engage in any military action or ground troops just to reopen the strait. Iran will inevitably reopen it themselves because they want to make money off this. And so if, people leave the region and the adversaries leave the region, Iran probably naturally gives in, which would take the price of oil down. Crude in the pre-markets at 102.94. So it was at 105 early on in the morning, 104.90. Now it's down to 102. Still not amazing. It's kind of normalizing above 100, which is really not good. But at least, you're starting to see a little bit of downside pressure based on this idea of what the Wall Street Journal said last night. And then Trump tweeted this morning, which kind of confirmed what the Wall Street Journal said. Quote, all of those countries that can't get jet fuel because of the Strait of Hormuz, like the United Kingdom, which refuse to get involved in the decapitation of Iran, I have a suggestion for you. Number one, buy from the U.S. We have plenty. And number two, buy up some delayed courage, go to the Strait and just take it. You'll have to start learning how to fight for yourself. The USA won't be there to help you anymore, just like you weren't there for us. Iran has been essentially decimated. The hard part is done. Go get your own oil. Now, there is a little bit of irony here, because when he's saying just go take the oil from the Strait, I mean, I'm sure another country would push back against the United States and say, well, just go take your ships and escort them through the Strait. If you're telling us to just go take it, then why don't you just go and take over the Strait? It's like, it's obviously not that simple to just go take over the sovereignty of another region, especially when that sovereignty is very militarily defended, because there's a lot of money involved in that. So, there's going to be some pushback against what Trump is saying right here. But the core argument that he's making is that the Strait of Hormuz is not as important. And that is, I think, I think the Strait of Hormuz is probably very important, but in sort of the game theory of the perception of the war and how the market's interpreting it is that if the underlying theme in Trump's comments is that the Strait of Hormuz is not as important and that you can just buy from the US, or you can just take the oil yourself, even if that statement in and of itself does not make a lot of sense. The point is, he might not be fighting as aggressively to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, which kind of confirms the Wall Street Journal headline from last night. And that is my interpretation for why the market has gone green, because essentially the market's realizing that he's willing to end the war without reopening Hormuz. And there was a couple things Trump said last night as well that, or at least was reported through the intermediaries, that makes you think this guy just does not want this war to continue, and he wants to find an off-ramp. And I think it's very obvious a lot of people are realizing he wants to find an off-ramp. The problem is he doesn't easily have the ability to find an off-ramp, because this is not as simple as talking out of the tariff situation. But he's trying to get out of here. You had a headline last night that Trump is interested in calling on Arab countries to pay for the cost of the Iran war. President Trump will soon have more to say on the topic, according to the White House later today. I mean, even this headline in and of itself, the fact that he's calling on Arab states like Saudi Arabia to pay for the cost of the war, means that he thinks he's doing them a solid. And there's been a lot of reporting that the Gulf states want the Iranians to be decimated from the American military, because they also don't want to deal with the threat in the region. But I mean, Trump is not interested in paying for the cost of the war every single day, because it's obviously costing the taxpayer a lot of money. And the worst thing that it's doing, at least in the context of him being able to win the midterms, is it is increasing the price of gas. Gas is officially, across the entire country, $4 a gallon. U.S. gasoline price rises above $4 as the war sends the fuel cost surging. U.S. gasoline climbed above $4 for the first time since August of 2022, 4.018 for regular gas, according to the American Automobile Association on Monday. Prices have surged by more than $1 since the start of the war. So I would imagine that Trump is not happy with the cost to the United States, which is why you even have these headlines of him trying to get the Arab states to pay for it. But more importantly, I think the underlying theme and what he's saying is that he wants this war to be done with. And it makes sense that he would want this war to be done with, because it's become ridiculous for a lot of different stakeholders. The stock market obviously has lost $5 trillion since this happened. So I imagine he wants this to be over. I don't know if this is going to be another repeat of yesterday. Let's do a poll right here in the chat of if people think that's the case. I mean, if I had to guess, I actually think we kind of hold this green, just because there's a little bit more legitimacy to some of the headlines yesterday. But then again, you think the headlines were legit 2 days ago and we went green and then we went red. It's like, it's just very hard to imagine it. So I'll put a poll right here in the chat. Do you think we hold this green for today? And this is kind of the equivalent of the green or red poll. What do people think? Soaring Shaheen says, hi, Amit. Hello to you, Soaring Shaheen. Thank you for being here. And thank you, everybody, for being here once again. We are back in the studio, back in the bricks. It just feels so much better being back in the studio, dude. Like, as much as I love traveling, it is so nice to be back in your routine. And we are back here, and we will have a lot to analyze as we try to figure out if this war can come to an end. So, I mean, look, I think we hold some of this green, but if we don't, it is what it is, and we will once again have to deal with it. The fading of the green has happened so many times that I think people, something I heard yesterday that was very interesting, and Citrini posted this, which is, as stupid as it sounds, you kind of think it could happen. So this is something someone told him, which is like, I don't know, man. I don't know. Trump is actually playing 5D chess by knowingly posting fake tacos that he knows will get faded, so that when the real taco comes, people will short into it and ensure there's fuel for the rally. As crazy as that sounds, and I don't think he's like actually posting fake tacos, but I think the inevitable result of all these fake tacos is that when he actually says, guys, it's over, the war's done, ceasefire, people are going to fade it. They're not going to believe it. They're going to short into it. And then maybe that's where you have an epic short squeeze, and whoever bought the dip is going to be heavily rewarded for that. Speaking of buying the dip, I know it sounds kind of crazy, but I don't know. I thought it was an interesting thought experiment to think about yesterday. I did buy the dip yesterday. So I did some shopping yesterday. It wasn't a lot of money. It looks like it was a lot of money because it was a lot of stocks, but it wasn't. It was $2,500. I'm waiting for the $35,000 to transfer into my solo 401k to max out the SEP IRA deduction this year for taxes. If you are self-employed, you should really look into the solo 401k. You can't have any employees, but if you are a single person LLC, which a lot of people that have their own business are, I would definitely look into this. I bought 10 different stocks. I put $250 into each of them, and as I get the $35,000 that clears, we're going to buy a lot more of these. AMD, Broadcom, Google, Robinhood, Meta, Nvidia, Oracle, Palantir, Rocket Lab, and Tesla. Just picked my favorite names and threw $250 into each of them. And I don't know if yesterday was the bottom, but as of now, they're all up in the pre-market, and time will tell to see if this war comes to an end anytime soon. I think these are relatively basic picks. They explain themselves. Meta, cheap. We know it's cheap. Nvidia, big fan, cheap. Robinhood, Palantir, two of my OGs. They're down a lot from the highs. Cheap. Rocket Lab, down from 100 to 57, almost 50%. I don't think Rocket Lab's relatively cheap, but at some point, you got to pull the trigger if you think these stocks can still have fundamental catalysts that allow them to expand. And so bought some Rocket Lab. Tesla, I definitely don't think it's cheap, but Tesla's down from 500. So I don't know if we're going to get Tesla that much cheaper at these levels. The interesting ones that people were thinking about were Broadcom and Oracle. I will be buying more Grab when the majority of the money clears. Then I'll have like a lot more money to actually DCA into Grab into this account. So this was just $2,500. I didn't want to just put it all into Grab. So we kind of spread it out on this. And I think of that 35,000, we'll probably do like 4,000 shares of Grab, and the rest of that we'll just split it among these 10 different stocks that you see right here on the screen. And again, these are retirement accounts. So, I get a tax deduction from contributing money into this account, but I eventually have to pay taxes when I sell this. So hopefully in 30 years, they're a lot more valuable than they are today. The two ones that stood out were Oracle and Broadcom. And I actually think they're interesting things to kind of look into. I think Oracle is one of the best proxies for OpenAI in the market right now because they have $350 billion of remaining performance obligations from OpenAI. Number two, Oracle was at $350. It's now at $140. It was at $125 during the Liberation Day lows. The multiple on the stock, forget the free cash flow yield, because I know that has gone negative like it has gone for Amazon and a bunch of other different names that are spending on CapEx. The multiple on the earnings is some of the cheapest, is one of the cheapest multiples we've seen in a very long time. And on top of that, you've got them as the ultimate neocloud. I mean, I know NBIS, Iran, and CoreWeave are very exciting. And the problem with them is they have to dilute constantly to be able to generate more shareholder capital to be able to invest in this CapEx. Oracle has done a lot of investing in that CapEx already, and their credit default swaps, I think, have peaked for Oracle. I don't think Oracle's credit default swaps are going to get as crazy as they've been. I mean, when Oracle was 350 is when the default swaps started to get a lot of attention. Oracle is down by more than half. So I would imagine there's a natural kind of push and pull as the credit default swaps go down, as OpenAI makes more progress. Eventually they go public. Oracle's going to get the benefit of that. And it's, one of the safer companies in the quote unquote hyperscaler space, neocloud space, versus the other one. So that's why I picked Oracle. And then Broadcom, I just think in the ASIC space to get exposure to it. I mean, Broadcom was at 420. It's at 293. Multiple is still not as attractive as Nvidia, but obviously if Nvidia, AMD win, Broadcom's going to win as well. Their AI revenues are exploding. So there wasn't that much logic or thought into them. These are sort of blue chip names. I don't think you can go wrong in any of the names that I picked, but we'll see which ones have some of the best alpha over the coming years. Redcat, that's up 3%. Microsoft is up 2%. MicroStrategy is up 1.5%. Netflix is up a little bit. ARM is up. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff that's on sale. And because there's a lot of stuff that's on sale, yeah, yesterday I decided to buy the dip. And once that 35K clears, I'll probably be buying more of the dip. But if we are closer than not to the end of the war, I think you're going to see a lot more people get excited to buy the dip. If we're not, then those dip buys that I made yesterday are going to look really bad because we're going to go a lot lower. And now we just have to see, how long this ends up going through. Trump just said something. Let me pull it up real quick. What is he saying? CBS interview. Trump announces America will not remove assets from Strait of Hormuz for now. War is 2 weeks ahead of schedule. It will be hard for anyone to remove Iran's uranium. Trump says not much more has to happen to declare victory. I think that's a bullish headline. SPY still going up, 638.84. Trump, not much more has to happen to declare victory, as per CBS. Trump announces that the war is 2 weeks ahead of schedule. Again, they said it would take 4 to 6 weeks. We're on day 31 of the war, so we have about 10 days left, which means theoretically it should take another week and a half before we officially end the war, if you believe the White House's timeline. And then he says Trump says it will be hard for anyone to remove Iran's uranium, which is also bullish because, this is going back to some of the headlines we talked about. How is that bullish? Well, if he's saying it's hard to remove Iran's uranium, that means he's not going to try. Right? Like, that's how you kind of read into it. It's like, if he's saying it's hard to, this is just like the whole regime change. Dude, they are not going to replace the Ayatollah with some king that they pick. Like, it's just not going to happen. And the reason it's not going to happen is because it's not easy to make it happen until you put boots on the ground, which is why you've got Pete Hegseth this morning in his conference saying, oh, regime change has already happened. Okay. If that's what helps them sleep at night and makes them think regime change has already happened, let them think that. Just end this damn war so that our stocks can go back up. But that's the point. Like, they're now shifting the definition of what they originally meant by regime change or, getting rid of all the nukes and uranium by making up these excuses, which is fine because, if that's how they need to sell the story to the American people, let them do that. But whatever it takes to end the war is all that I think we care about.
This new regime, because regime change has occurred, should be wiser.
You guys can barely hear that. That is not the best clip. Let me see if I can get a better clip right here. But Pete Hegseth basically said regime change has already occurred, which to me is like, okay, cool. If he's saying regime change has already occurred, then, that's pretty bullish. Like, if that's his argument, then that's his argument. And so when he's saying it's hard to get the uranium, it's like, okay, cool. Good. If it's hard to get the uranium, you're not going to try, then that's what kind of matters to inevitably get this taco that we are all looking for. Is this it? Yeah, let me see if this video is better in the context of audio to hear this.
This new regime, because regime change has occurred, should be wiser than the last.
Okay, that was something wrong with the White House's audio because multiple clips are not, you're not able to hear it as well. But basically said regime change has already occurred. So, look, I don't know if the war is actually over. Obviously, no one knows if the war is over, but to look at it from a more optimistic perspective, if we want to go that route, we've obviously looked at it from very bearish perspectives as well, is if the Trump administration is saying regime change has happened, if they're saying, we're going to be done in 4 to 6 weeks, if they're saying we're negotiating, and if they're also saying that the uranium is too hard to remove, then they're subtly admitting that the mission is done, whether or not you believe the mission was effective. If they can sell the story that the mission was effective and it's done, they can end the freaking war. And if they do that, maybe we have a better chance of moving forward and getting out of it. But again, time will tell. If we go red as soon as the market opens, then once again, the market's believing the war is not over. And, it's funny because every time we go red, the market basically is calling BS on the war being over. And then Trump or Hegseth or Rubio has to come out and someone has to convince the American public that, no, the war is over. It's getting over soon. At some point, it's going to get old and it's not going to work anymore. And we've already seen Bitcoin right there at 66.5, that it's not working as easily as it was a couple of weeks ago and the tweets are not as effective. But then you get a day like this where the tweets are effective and we're up 1% on the S&P, which might fade as soon as the market opens. It might be the same game. The day that it's not the same game is, I think, the day the market has collectively decided, all right, this is really coming to an end. And none of us know when that day is happening. Hopefully it's today, but I wouldn't count on it. All we can do is kind of read into some of these quotes and make a better understanding of, or try to make a more optimistic understanding of how this thing is going to play out. The price action will hopefully give us a better understanding as it goes forward. I don't think it's over yet. I don't think it's over yet either. It's just price action is the dictator of how much the market believes it's over or not. Now, the Iranians did come out yesterday and said, we have barely done any negotiating with the United States. So that's a bit more of a bearish headline. Whether you want to believe the Iranians or not is another question. Same thing as whether you want to believe Pete Hegseth or not. I mean, again, it goes back and forth. But the Iranian Foreign Ministry says, we have not conducted any negotiations with the U.S. during the last 31 days of the war. What happened is a request for negotiations accompanied by American proposals that reached us through some intermediaries, including Pakistan. So that is confirming the reports that Pakistan and Egypt did try to reach out to talk to the Iranians from the United States. Our position is clear, and it is that we are dedicating all of our efforts to defending our sovereignty amid the continuation of the American aggression. So the Iranians basically are saying we have done zero negotiations. Trump is saying we are doing all the negotiations. Trump also said that he is extending the timeline to bomb the power plants by 10 days a couple of days ago, which, you know, the markets kind of got excited about that then they didn't really care. So I just think every time Trump says, you know, we are going to not bomb them, or we are going to negotiate, or we're going to escort ships through the strait, it's another excuse for him to not deploy troops on the ground, or for him to delay the process of how this war plays out, which to me is signaling that he wants to get out of this. He wants to find an off-ramp. He obviously got into something that he didn't know what the hell was going to happen, and he ended up realizing he made a pretty big mistake. And you know, there's not a way to easily get the Iranian people to be liberated. In fact, Trump said 3 days ago that if the Iranian people want to get liberated, it's up to them. But at the end of the day, our mission is complete. Like he's not even focused on the idea of a uprising of democracy, which was the core thing he talked about the day he put out the video justifying why we're going into Iran. So if he's completely flipped and done a 180 on that as the sort of primary mission for the impact of this war, then I think the dude is realizing, yeah, we probably can't do that. And I'm not going to be able to convince the American people to stay in Iran for the next 5 years to be able to liberate Iranians, which means I need to find an off-ramp, and I think he's trying to find an off-ramp. And hopefully that happens soon. So we'll see when the market opens. We got 20 minutes based on price action. But again, Trump to CBS says it'll be hard for anyone to remove Iran's uranium. Not much more has to happen to declare victory, and war is 2 weeks ahead of schedule. Hopefully this leads to a little bit more momentum as we get towards the end of March and we get into April. Business stuff. Let's talk more about different deals we had in the stock market. Nvidia is investing in MRVL. This one was an interesting one. Didn't expect it to happen. I'm sure Jose is very happy about this. MRVL right there up 8.3%. They are investing $2 billion into MRVL. And we're at 95.17 in the pre-markets. Let me know if anyone owns MRVL. We will have JOLTS at 10 a.m. as well, so we'll be taking a look at the job openings in America, see how the markets react to that as well. There he is. He's right there in the chat, Mr. Jose. I think this makes sense for Nvidia for a variety of reasons. Obviously, the $2 billion investments they've been doing in a bunch of different companies, NBIS, CoreWeave, they've invested in much more than $2 billion. Lumentum, Coherent, they've invested in that as well. They need to be putting some money into Micron because that one's struggling. And so we'll talk about that. But apparently this is part of a strategic AI infrastructure partnership centered around NVLink Fusion, with the two also set to work together on silicon photonics and AI RAN for telecom networks. And that is why NVIDIA has made this investment in MRVL. Now, MRVL has been oscillating around this exact price that you're seeing right here, 96, for the past 7 months now. So maybe this is the breakout that it needs to actually get out of the range that it has been stuck in. Sam, I think, is also in this stock as well. He's like MRVL for a long time. Jason's also like MRVL for a long time. He's been trading it a bunch. I think it makes sense. NVIDIA has a lot of cash. They need to deploy that cash, and obviously that cash needs to go somewhere that is more effective for them. S&P 500 right there up 1.12%. The interesting thing about what NVIDIA is doing right here, though, is they're realizing that everyone who is part of either the supply chain ecosystem or the sort of broader partnership ecosystem needs capital, especially in a time like this where capital seems to be drying up. I mean, I was talking to a VC friend of mine yesterday around private market liquidity, and even he was like, dude, I need like 150 grand to close a round, and I'm not getting the 150 grand. It's like people are just not sending me the money. And I'm like, 150 grand in the private markets is like peanuts. He's like, yeah, it's just people are just not sending it. Like I thought I would get the wires to come in, and they're not coming in. And he's attributing to the fact that people are really bleeding in the public markets. And sometimes if you need 25K from 5 different people, it's hard for them to come up with that money if their public portfolios are getting hit. So I do think the private market activity is going to spike up a little bit more when the public markets recover, if they do have a chance to recover. But that means NVIDIA needs to come in and make some investments in some of these public stocks to give them a little bit of a boost. And I think that's what they're doing with MRVL, NBIS, CoreWeave, Lumentum, etc. The photonics plays are not really moving that much in the pre-market either. They're barely up 1%. You had AAOI that for the third time this year fell from 130 to 85. So this one has been in a pretty ugly drawdown, although it's still up 200% year over year or year to date. That's at 85, up 13% or was down 13% yesterday. Micron fell another 10% yesterday. And the argument for this, Nvidia should invest in AMD. That would be funny. I don't know if Lisa Su would even want that to happen. But the argument for this is that DRAM pricing apparently fell yesterday via various sources. And so everyone thought that HBM and DRAM prices just were going up, and NAND prices apparently, I mean, yesterday there were some charts saying that prices are going down. There were also some arguments about phone demand kind of encapsulating memory demand, aka the suppliers are not exactly, the manufacturers are rejecting some of the demand that's coming, some of the supplies that are coming in from the Microns of the world because they just don't need as much. I don't know how valid those reports are, but the stock fell 10% yesterday. And I know there was a broad market sell-off, but I think that was exacerbated because of some of those rumors and reports. So it's the same thesis that I think a lot of us have had on memory for a while, which is why most of us, in my opinion, have been out of the name or been out of the sector, because although it's very enticing, Micron, SanDisk, Western Digital, I mean, these have been the best names all year. They've been the best names all year, so you got to worry about chasing momentum and not having FOMO. And then B, it's a commodity. They're selling memory. And as much as people want to say memory is going to be sold out forever, like, it's not something that has a moat. As much as the numbers look incredible, which for Micron, the numbers look absolutely incredible. And the forward PE is now below 5, which is insanity. I mean, it's not an Nvidia type of moat when it comes to GPUs, even if you make the argument that Nvidia is cyclical, so you can't make the argument that memory is cyclical because they're both part of the same cycle. One of them has a moat, the other one doesn't. And I think that's why those stocks are getting hit. Having said that, I mean, they're so cheap that even if they are cyclical, I still feel like you're going to get some buyers to come in. But I'd be very curious to see if the pain continues on the memory names, because then it's just not the market selling off. It's the broader thesis around memory being much more in question. Is Jensen live on CNBC? I didn't know he'd be live today. Buffett was live 10 minutes ago. We got some good clips from him, so we'll take a look at what Buffett said. Jensen is live with the MRVL guy. Let's pull that up and see why he invested $2 billion in MRVL.
Level of choice that are currently not available, which could mean great things for your network portion of your business.
Yeah, you know, first of all, you know that AI inflection point has arrived. We got a big echo on our side. Can somebody stop that? Oh, fantastic. Okay, so anyways, you know, the AI inflection point has arrived. We're going through a platform transition. All of the world's data centers are going to be replaced with this new form of doing computing we call accelerated computing. Of course, the vast majority of the data centers would be powered by Nvidia CUDA GPUs. However, for customers who would like to also have specialized versions that they build themselves, we're extending our architecture, starting with the networking architecture, basically the entire chassis of our Grace Blackwell and Vera Rubin systems. And we're going to extend that through NVLink and connect it to MRVL. And together, we'll be able to address the customers whether they would like to use all NVIDIA gear or they would like to augment our NVIDIA gear with their specialized processors. And together, we're going to be able to address a much, much larger TAM.
Okay, so Matt, congratulations. I know this is a really big deal, and you know, I followed your company for many, many years, and you did tell me over and over again, look, you would be part of the future of AI, which is now obviously is coronated. I want to know whether you have customers, and you've got some big hyperscaler customers, that will be thrilled that they get a chance to be able to kind of get away from who they've necessarily been trapped with.
Well, I wouldn't call it trapped. I think customers are going to be very excited about this. I mean, what customers are looking for, Jim, is flexibility. They're looking for technology innovation. They're looking for their partners to actually work together to drive a very robust ecosystem. And I think that's really what we see from the MRVL side is we have key strengths in interconnect technology, silicon photonics, custom silicon. But then Nvidia, and as Jensen mentioned, they're not just a GPU company. This is an asset-rich company, right? With key networking IP, NICs, DPUs, CPUs, interconnect, rack scale. So these are all things that now MRVL, together with Nvidia, can provide. We can drive interoperability, we can drive complete solutions, and we can enable customer choice. So I think it's going to be a win for everybody.
And you know, Jim, there's really a couple of major specialized semi-custom chip players out there, and both of them have a large installation of NVIDIA architecture now. And so both of them have large installations of NVLink. They use the standard chassis that NVIDIA provides, the Grace Blackwell chassis. And so all of this can be extended. In the future, these data centers will have, you know, GPUs, and they have some specialized XPUs on their side, but they have the benefit of connecting all of it with NVLink, connecting all of it with Spectrum X. They could add NVIDIA Vera CPUs to their racks. They could add NVIDIA's storage processors, Bluefield 4, to their rack. And they could even add NVIDIA LPXs, the Grok chips, to their racks. And so all of this will be system architecture compatible. It'll be ecosystem compatible, and it expands the opportunity, makes it easier for them to interoperate, and makes it fantastic for us as we expand our TAM.
Let's talk about the TAM and how.
Okay, so that's the main stuff we got from Jensen and MRVL. We'll see if they say anything else that's really important. But look, I think it's a partnership that makes sense. The question is just going to be how the market interprets it, and if that's enough of a partnership to keep the green going. Again, NVIDIA has made a lot of these partnerships over the coming weeks, or over the past few weeks, in regards to them investing in the overall ecosystem, including a company called NBIS. NBIS had some news this morning as they are expanding their capacity for data centers and the build out. That stock's up 5% right here. The exact headline is NBIS is constructing 310 megawatts of a data center AI factory in Finland. The first capacity is expected to be available to customers in 2027. It will be one of Europe's largest dedicated AI factories. And that is the headline that you have this morning. Again, NBIS already raised about $4.5 billion in the convertible notes, which is really good. They got that dilution out of the way. And that's why, you know, the stock did make that run to 130. It did come down to 92 yesterday after the overall sell-off. I mean, the cool thing about what's happening in the broader market and how you're seeing these stocks rebound, NBIS up 5% right here. And maybe it's up because of the Finland headline. Maybe it's up because of the general green that we're seeing, is that the names that are super high beta, like a NBIS that went from 90 to 130, all the way back down to 90 within the span of what, 2 weeks? They could go back to 130 if we get a lot of good news. I mean, these are incredible names to A, write covered calls on, B, trade, and then C, you know, if you want that level of high beta in your portfolio, there are some names that do give you that upside, especially if you've got them at a very low cost basis, which I know a lot of people were able to get into NBIS under $70. And so this stock getting back to 100 is not going to surprise anybody. The question is, do we have the momentum built in to help it get there? Iran also took a nasty 10% hit yesterday. That's up 3% right here. And then CoreWeave took a ugly hit below 70 yesterday. That one is now up 5%. CoreWeave right there, $5.773 in the pre-market. Software has been kind of the thing that's been the ugliest. The neo clouds have been more volatile. Memory has been more volatile than software. Just in terms of the up and down movement, but I think they have a better capacity to rebound. You would think software would get a little bit of a rebound, but it's not necessarily happening. So let's talk about software for a little bit. We got 9 minutes until the market opens. You've got 78.70 on IGV. That's up 1.39% right here in the pre-market. The interesting thing about software, and I saw this yesterday, and I actually got really upset, and it made me not want to buy Microsoft. Now, I bought a little bit of Microsoft ever since the dip kept dipping, and now we have a much more aggressive dip. But this is what they introduced yesterday, and it makes you really wonder why Microsoft is the way that it is. Nadella introduced something called Counsel inside of Copilot, which is running multiple models on the same prompt at the same time so you can see where they align and diverge and understand what each adds. This has been part of Palantir's AIP for the past 2.5 years. It's called KLLMs. I mean, anyone who even barely knows anything about Palantir knows that AIP has allowed you to synthesize multiple language models at the same time, because CARP has always had this thesis that the language models aren't that valuable. It's the orchestration of the models, and then being able to generate input and alpha from those models. The fact that Microsoft, for the first time in this whole AI revolution, is allowing you to synthesize and crystallize multiple models together is just fascinating to me, because I'm like, well, hold on. If Palantir, which is a much smaller company than Microsoft, has been doing this for a long time, it's a little confusing that Microsoft has just hopped on the bandwagon. And the broader thesis that I'm talking about here is less about the technology that Microsoft introduced yesterday. It's about the fact that people don't use Copilot at the level that they need to, at least the AI version of Copilot, which is the software part of the business that Microsoft has not been able to really win over. Now, again, I think Microsoft trading at this multiple is stupid, and I obviously don't think it should be worth this much, especially in the context of Azure and the growth we're seeing there. But the core software part of Copilot, and at least the AI part of it, only has sold 15 million subscriptions. They have over 450 million users. It has not seen massive, massive growth. So as important as Microsoft is, I think that is the narrative they have to overcome. And whether or not you agree with LinkedIn and Windows and Office and all the other cool stuff that Microsoft has, obviously Azure and their AI infrastructure business that should warrant a higher multiple than 21 times earnings. It is a software company. It is the highest holding in IGV. And so if they're not showing the software growth, I don't know if the narrative changes on Microsoft, and time will tell when we get into the earnings in a couple of weeks. Earnings season, by the way, is 2 weeks away. April 10th, we're going to get on earnings. We're going to get on earnings. So we were going to have banks that release earnings in the next 10 days, which means we're going to be right back into earnings season, and we're going to see, first of all, how these companies give guidance, and second of all, if these companies can put up the numbers that are necessary to justify even the multiple that we currently have on the S&P 500, which is still above the historical average. S&P is now in a 9% drawdown from the top, so obviously it's 8% down for the year, 7.5%. It's been ugly this year, but maybe, just maybe, we get a little bit of a change. I agree, Mitt, but the enterprise is also mandated and Microsoft owns all the distribution. I don't disagree with any of that, which is why Microsoft, I think, is going to win long-term. And, you know, it's not that I think they're going to win long-term. They have been winning for the past 30 years in the enterprise. But the core AI part of the software business, which is essentially described as Copilot, is not gaining the level of growth and subscriptions that I think the market expected. It eventually will, I imagine. Like, I think Microsoft will figure it out, but it hasn't so far. Like, if I were to point to any reason why the street has taken down its multiple, it would be that. Now, I think the street can take down Salesforce and Adobe's multiple in a more justified way than Microsoft's multiple, because Microsoft has Azure. But it's undeniable that that part of the business isn't growing like 40% like Azure is, which it should be if AI is so transformational in the enterprise via, you know, Microsoft's interpretation of it inside of Copilot. So they're not going anywhere, but being able to boost that part of the business, I think, would definitely change the narrative. And, you know, right now the street is not saying that that's the best thing for them to care about at the moment. S&P 500 right there, up about 1% in the pre-market. Again, Claude messed up all the cybersecurity names by putting out a model last week. That one has started to get a little bit of less traction, but you did have the Palo Alto CEO buy 10 million of his stock, trying to tell the street that it shouldn't be down as much. It was up 5% yesterday, so he had a little bit of a rebound in the cybersecurity names as well. Pakistani government says the 5-point initiative of China and Pakistan for restoring peace and stability in Gulf region. China and Pakistan call for immediate cessation of hostilities in the Gulf. Okay, so that's good. You've got some of these other countries coming out saying that we want to have peace. The Chinese-Pakistani statement calls for ensuring the security of ships and securing the passage of civilian and commercial ships through the strait. I don't think we've seen the Chinese and the Pakistanis come together to put out a joint statement in a long time. But I guess that's what happens when you have a war breaking out. So there you go. You've got the Chinese and the Pakistanis coming together to put out a statement. You also have the Secretary of Labor, I believe, who went on Fox this morning, and based on what she said, it looks like Friday's job numbers, which we do get non-farm payrolls, might not be the best.
How would you assess the jobs picture today?
Well, I'm looking forward to Friday's numbers to see exactly what the trends are. You know, any snapshot in time, any economic indicators that we have through the Department of Labor when we're collecting these data points, we did see last month where the jobs numbers dropped. We know we can attribute a lot of that to whether it's a strike, whether it's the weather. But again, it's a snapshot in time. And we have focused so diligently on making sure that we grow this workforce, whether it's through AI, or any other sort of manufacturing, construction, the skilled trades. Closing that skilled trades gap is what has been important for the markets. And we're talking to private sectors. We want to know what they need, when they need it, and how quickly they need it. So I'm looking forward to these numbers. Again, with the oil prices in this, what's happening in the Middle East. I know the president has been very focused with his, policy team there, foreign policy. We want to make sure that we're doing best for Americans, keeping prices low, because we have seen over time since the Biden administration, gas prices have gone down, housing prices were on track to go down, but we have a little stop in that. But we're going to keep focused on the employment market, because we want to make sure that people are keeping more of their hard-earned dollars.
Okay, so basically she said a lot of nothing, which is prompting the market to get ready for a jobs report that might be ugly. We have not added any net new jobs this year. We have not added any net new jobs in 2025. In fact, we lost 1 million jobs. So granted, I do think the market understands the labor market is not in the best spot. And if we do get an ugly jobs report tomorrow, which we'll get JOLTS at 10 a.m., so we'll see how many job openings there are in America as well, that might prompt the Fed to cut rates. Everything that Jay Powell said yesterday was not really conducive to cutting rates. In fact, it was a bit more bearish and hawkish on the idea of inflation coming up because of gas prices. But if we do get an ugly labor market report tomorrow, maybe that's enough for the Fed to think, hey, our idea of hiking rates, which has now been a question, is not wise, given we need to have some level of support for the labor market, and that might come through an inevitable cut, even if it's not in the next meeting. We got 1 minute until the market opens. Take a look at this, folks. This is kind of crazy. Michael Burry just tweeted. Kind of feels a little bullish, to be honest. Shorts are not forever. Shorts are not forever. By the way, look at that battery on that iPhone. Look at that battery. Nice little 90% on that battery. Shorts are not forever. Is he getting ready to potentially say he's done being short? He's done calling for the market to collapse 50%? Because if he is, and he thinks we're, and I think my gut reaction is even he knows that if Trump legit says the war is over, given how oversold we are, and objectively, like there are some stocks that are just ridiculously oversold, even if you think the broader S&P isn't, we're going to rip. And we're going to rip hard. And I don't think he wants to be on the wrong side of that, especially if that rip ends up leading to higher earnings growth, and that higher earnings growth then justifies the rip, and then we have a broad-based rally. So let's see if that can happen. 9:30 a.m. Tuesday, back in the studio. The stock market is now open. All right, wake your ass up. Let's get into it. 639.17 on the S&P 500. 639.17. We are green by about 1.16% on the day. CoreWeave, that is up 5.63%. Nebius, that is up 4.5%. 96.64 on Mr. Nebius. IREM, that's up 3%. Lumentum's up 3%. Marvell up 9%. Nvidia invested $2 billion into Marvell. That's why that stock is up. Nvidia is at 167.43. The fact that Nvidia is below 170 is already kind of crazy, but it's holding on to 167. Let's see if we can make a move back up to 168.50 today. That's up 1.4%. Broadcom, that's up 1.63. Oracle, that's up 1.2. Nike's up 1.89%. We've got earnings after the bell. Reddit is up 2% today. Zeta is up 2%. Palantir back below 140, but that still is up 1.5%. Bitcoin, 66.8, up from 65 last night. So that's nice, seeing a little bit of a move, at least on Bitcoin. It was at 71 a couple of days ago. Amazon at 204, that's up 1.9%. ASTS is up 4%. You've got the space names getting some love. I did buy some Rocket Lab yesterday at 57. The stock is 61.72 today. That's up 7.6%. The Trade Desk is up 1.3%. SanDisk 2.5. This was at 780. Now it's at 580. So it's down about $200. But you are green. VG is dumping, likely because the war is being perceived as coming to an end. Again, it's not actually over, but if it is being perceived as coming to an end, the oil stocks will react to the downside. VG down 7% on the day, 1585. Where is software? Snowflake is getting a nasty dump. Salesforce is getting a dump, not as nasty as Snowflake. Adobe about to dump. ServiceNow about to dump as well. So some of your software names not holding on. Microsoft actually going the opposite. Interesting. So Microsoft, the biggest holding in the software names, going green. IGV is still green. Snowflake and Salesforce are the ones that are getting hit right here. They're some of the only red names. We have a very green day. Satellogic is green. Walmart's green. Netflix is green. MicroStrategy is green. Red Cat is green. The VIX is down 8% on the day. That is correct. VIX is going down, which is great. Blue Owl's up. How about SoFi, which got accused by Muddy Waters again of basically lying about $1 billion of EBITDA over the past year? That stock is up 1.72%. Why is TE down 20%? Didn't they already get hit 30% like a month ago? This was a pretty big name in the energy space. Q4 numbers, oh my. They missed EPS by 69 cents. They missed revenue by 10 million. And it looks like guidance was significantly lower than expected in terms of the target that they have for gigawatt production and sales guidance. At least it wasn't impressive to the street. That stock right there down 20% on the day. Yep, not the best earnings. Micron trying to go green. You would think this one goes a bit harder, given how much it's been oversold. It's really barely getting a bid. It's up $2 today, $3.23. It was at $4.70. Even with their earnings, street's not ready to give them the love yet. Nvidia pushing through 168, or at least trying. A Greek-controlled oil tanker has crossed the Strait of Hormuz, marking the fourth such voyage since hostilities in the Middle East began, as per Bloomberg. That is also bullish. The more different tankers and vessels pass through the strait, the more the Iranians might be letting up on the idea of keeping it indefinitely closed, which is obviously really good for oil prices. Nvidia 168. There you go. You got 168 on Nvidia. Meta, are we at 540? We are at 554. Look at that. Bought a little bit of the Meta dip yesterday. If you bought the Meta dip anywhere below 550, you should be relatively happy. 520s, 530s, 555. It's up on the day. It's up 3.6%. It's still down significantly from the high. So maybe you get some people buying into that strength, which is very nice to see. Robinhood right there, 65.80. That's up 1%. I think Meta sold off more from the broad-based war sell-off than just the child exploitation lawsuit. I do think it's a big deal. Although, once again, if Meta keeps putting up this growth and, Section 230 doesn't get reversed, it'll be parking tickets that they have to pay, which will be annoying, but they will not be consequential to the earnings growth. So we open up that Strait of Hormuz, maybe we have a lot more excitement in the broader public markets, and, a company like Meta trading at this discount, it's going to get a lot of institutional investors excited about it as well. Same thing with Microsoft, same thing with Amazon, and obviously the same thing with Nvidia. Oracle making a nice move as well, 140, 167. Remember, Oracle was at 170 after earnings. Oracle's cheap right here. It's actually one of those names that I wouldn't mind adding to after buying a little bit of it yesterday. And it is a better direct OpenAI proxy to me, even than Microsoft, just because they have direct lines of RPO coming from OpenAI, and OpenAI actually needs their cloud computing. So unless that relationship gets messed up, I do think that's a relatively healthy way to get exposure to them. Obviously, OpenAI's got to keep putting up the numbers. SoFi right there, that's up 1.45%. Lemonade's up 4%. Oscar is up 1%. Netflix back to 94, which is nice to see. Oracle's also doing layoffs as well. That might help them with some of their margins. The Trade Desk is up 1.48. SanDisk up 3.5. SanDisk almost at 600. The Max 7 are all green, including the Googs. Bought a little bit of Google yesterday as well. Microsoft 366, Meta 555, Nvidia almost at 169, Tesla 364. Next Decade, is that green? Next Decade is green, which is weird that VG is down and Next is up. You would think both of them would go down at the same time. ExxonMobil is also up. All right, when the oil names start going green, it kind of signals that the high beta names might go red. So hopefully they don't, but let's see what happens. Exxon right there at 173. Soundhound, that's up as well. S&P holding on to its 1%. We started dumping yesterday very early into the open. Like even we're 6 minutes into the open. Even yesterday, 6 minutes into the open, we were that 1% move turned into a 0.4% move. So far we haven't given up anything from the pre-market. In fact, we're actually a little bit above that. Let's see if we can keep it going. But Micron goes red. There's got to be something structurally wrong with the memory thesis right now that might not be as widespread in terms of the sort of news aggregation of it, but there's pockets of the industry that are starting to realize there might be an issue, because this stock should not be down on a green day after those earnings. I mean, even a sympathy rebound should be happening here, and that's just not happening. But SanDisk is green, which means maybe it's a Micron-specific issue over a memory issue. Nebius up 6%. Nebius up 6%. As that one continues to go green. Yeah, I'm not sure why next is green. I'm not sure why next is green right here. Along with VG. It's a little weird. I saw the Google compression algorithm stuff, although that is old news. Maybe it's still weighing on the memory names. And in fact, they introduced that algorithm a year ago. So I don't know, maybe that it's now going fully into production. The memory investors are starting to take it more seriously. But regardless, I mean, that's why I think a lot of people stayed out of memory, because any even headline on the commoditization of memory would be ugly. VG getting a green candle. Constellation Energy down 7% on the day as well. VG getting a little bit of a bounce right there. Something to watch out for if that one continues to flip green. Let me check the VIX. By the way, Friday, the market will be closed. Friday, the market will be closed for Good Friday. So one thing to think about as we get towards the end of the week, where is the VIX? Down 8%. Still at 28, though. Still at 28. Still at 28. Yeah, Virgin Galactic is back. This was not something I wanted to see yesterday. They are now offering trips, what is it, to the moon or trips in outer space or something? And this is 2021 vibes, which I don't like seeing any of these 2021 names, but yeah, Virgin Galactic is up 18% off the idea that they'll now send you to the moon. Meta right there up 3.5%. Micron continues to drop down 1.5%. Amazon up 2.5%. ASTS up 6%. Ondas fell below $10. That's up 1.23 on the day. I mean, the fact that it fell below 10 and now it's kind of chilling in the 8 and 9s. We'll see if that can normalize there, if it can break back out into that $10 range. Bitmine is also up, and then Uber is up 1.3% as well. Is it? It's not trips to the moon, right? It's trips like it's like a $750,000 outer space 10-minute trip that they're offering. I don't know how many people are going to pay for that, but the stock's up based on that headline yesterday of that coming back. AMD, that's up 1% as well. We are going to get some macro data pretty soon, so we will check that out in a second. Can they send my portfolio to the moon? That would be a nice thing if they would be able to do that. AMD right there, that's up 1%. S&P, dude, it's still pumping, 639.90. Does that include a check bag? Is crazy. That's actually crazy. 640 on the S&P would be very nice. Meta and Motion Picture Association reached deal on PG-13 rating used for teen accounts. Okay, I guess Meta is starting to take some steps based on that lawsuit to mitigate the effect of how much they've been sued. So I guess they will have some PG-13 labels now on content that is on Meta, 168.26. Also, they're thinking of a premium Instagram, like a subscription to a premium Instagram, which, look, I pay for X. I don't know if I'm paying for premium Instagram. I'm sure the Instagram models and like influencers will pay for that, but I don't think the average person is going to pay for premium Instagram. But it still is a nice subscription business that if Meta can monetize, that would be well. Rocket Lab, that's up 6%. CoreWeave's up 7%. Palo Alto's up 1.2%. Warren Buffett said a bunch of things this morning. We'll take a look at some of the stuff that he mentioned, but he is still pretty bullish on Apple and American Express and Coca-Cola and kind of his core names. He also said some stuff about the cash levels that they have, so we'll take a look about that in a second. The rumor that Elon and SpaceX were not going to allow Robinhood and SoFi users to participate in the IPO, Elon said this morning, is false. So if you want to get access to SpaceX via Robinhood and SoFi, it looks like they're going to have some allocation in general for people to get access to. I think 30% of the float is going to be reserved for retail investors. Robinhood and SoFi look like they're going to be part of that. Again, I think SpaceX is a little expensive, but if retail wants to get exposure, it looks like Elon is going to try his best to make sure retail can get exposure. Snapchat fell below $4. Where's Snap? Snap 412 again. So that's up 2.62% of the day. That one holding on. VG 16. All right. So you broke through the 16s right here. I'm wondering, when does that mean that we go down on the S&P? That hasn't happened yet. NBIS almost back to 100. That's up 7%. They had, again, a really good deal this morning with Finland. The market's excited about that. Circle, that's up a little bit, although that's down from 130 down to 90. Roblox is up 3%. The Robinhood Ventures Fund is up 1.98%. The Venture Fundrise Growth Fund is now down 85%, 570 down to 101. It's down another 8% today in the private markets for the closed-end fund. So that one definitely took a bit of a hit. and probably for good reason because it got a bit aggressive. But if some of that money flows back into the public markets, that's what really matters right here. Oracle, 141. 141. What do you think of A-Lab? I like it. A-Lab and Arista, they've fallen significantly from their highs. I don't own them, but obviously you believe in the networking space. And you believe in what Nvidia is doing with a variety of their different partners, NVLink Fusion. There is a thesis there that's obvious. It's just the stock. There's some AI stocks that have been amazing this year and some that have sucked. And the ones that have sucked, if you've been able to leverage any level of premium for them from the covered calls, they've been really good. Like in Nvidia, if you've done covered calls on it all year, it's been good for you, but it still has sucked as a stock. NBIS has been a great stock. It's up like 40% this year. Maybe less now after the drop from yesterday. NBIS year to date, okay, it's up 10%. It was up 50% at one point, so it's very volatile. But 10% is better than a lot of other returns in the AI name. So A-Lab, Arista, they have an AI thesis, but they just have not performed. But the thesis is fundamental. It's just the names have not put up the best results for the street. AMD right there, 198.65. Tesla 364. Amcor, that's up 4.5%. Googs 277. Googs was at 350. It's at 278. Are people more excited to buy the dip on Google or Meta? I mean, I would imagine the gut reaction for most people is Meta, just given how fast they're growing in comparison to the multiple they're at. Google is not trading at an 18 times earnings. Meta is. But I still think people would be excited for the Goose. Yes, Rocket Lab got approved for the Miranek acquisition. I'm not going to lie. I have no idea what the hell the Miranek acquisition even means. But I bought the stock right before that was approved, like literally an hour before. And so I commented under their announcement. I was like, cool. I bought your stock today. I don't know what Miranek is. I have to do a little bit more research into that. But I was happy to buy the stock before that was announced. I genuinely have no idea. And I need to look into this. But apparently it's a big deal. Laser communications, critical fabs. The transaction was approved by Germany's Federal Ministry of Economic Affairs yesterday. And that's why that went green. Why would you pick Oracle over Micron in that list? I mean, yes, Micron's cheaper, but I mean, look at what happened to Micron. Here's the question for everybody. This is the big question. This is where you have to draw a line in the sand. Do you go heavy into memory right here? Because first of all, I think you're getting a deal on Oracle or Micron. Let's just straight up. I think you're getting a deal one or the other. Oracle's down from 350, Micron's down from 470. Micron has way better earnings, 100%, but Micron's revenue and their super cycle of memory, if that's under threat, I mean, you would imagine Oracle would be the better bet, right? Because data center and cloud computing is something that's going to be in demand for a long time. So is memory, but then again, if memory is a commodity, then Micron shouldn't get all the upside from that. Having said that, Micron's way cheaper. And Micron's obviously a lot more profitable on a EBITDA basis, cash flow basis, and net income basis. So I don't think any of them are the wrong buy, but the perception on Micron, I mean, for this thing to get back to 470, it was cool when it was at 430, 420, fell to 380. It's like, okay, now it's pushing $17 away from going below 300. That, and for someone who doesn't really understand the memory space, that is scary for me to step in there. And it's not like buying the Meta dip where Meta will be around forever. And Meta will keep growing forever. Micron's a little scarier. Oracle does have its own risks, I agree. But who really piles into Micron right here? I mean, put in the chat if you're legit, every last dollar you have on the dip is buying. Because if it is the most undervalued stock in the market relative to its earnings growth. I mean, just look at their forward PE. That says it all. But do you take the risk and do you just pile in? S&P 640.4. 640.4. As this one continues to go green, 1.35% on the day. You're getting a lot of momentum right there. Look at that, 640.6. We are breaking it. This is not what happened yesterday. Yesterday, we went red within the first 10 minutes. Within the first 5 minutes, we went red. So this is definitely a nicer reversal. Or this is a lack of reversal that we're seeing. And it's nice to see a little bit more momentum. Also, there's a Russian oil tanker that's coming to Cuba. The U.S. allowed that to happen yesterday as well. So you're seeing a little bit more momentum there, potentially on oil prices getting beaten down just based on that alone. which is not the worst thing. Okay, my computer is about to die because for some reason, after coming back from Los Angeles, I forgot that I need to charge a computer because a computer needs battery. So let's pull up Warren Buffett. Give me 2 minutes. Let me charge my computer. Here's what Buffett had to say this morning, and then we will keep going from there.
Exactly. And any place else, they'd have 25 or 30 people. And he loves what he does, and I love what he does. And he's down the hall about 20 feet. About every hour or hour and a half, he brings me in what we've done. And
what Berkshire has done just in terms of the markets that day?
Yeah, I call him. I call him before the market opens because I see what's been going on, pre-market, and probably change the limits only. I don't get lots of different stocks or anything like that. But every now and then I'll introduce something, and I will change limit prices daily.
But you don't do that. You don't check with Greg before you're doing that. You check with Greg on a regular.
Well, Greg gets the sheet every day.
Oh, he does too.
He doesn't get it quite as fast as I get it. I mean, but it probably gets sent over at the end of the day or something of the sort. And if Greg differed with me on anything, we wouldn't be doing it.
But you.
Okay, we are back. So Buffett said a lot of different things. One of the main things he said is that he still continues to hold Apple. S&P, wow, almost 641. Almost 641. Apparently, Buffett is making a ton of decisions still inside of Berkshire Hathaway. He did not step down like people thought he stepped down. Obviously, he's not the CEO anymore. But, the way he was talking in this interview was implying that he is playing an active role in the decision-making process of Berkshire Hathaway. 641.30. 641.30. We are breaking through. A couple quotes from Berkshire or from Warren Buffett. Number one, I sold Apple too soon. Number two, Apple is better than any business we own outright. Number three, Berkshire made more than $100 billion on Apple. Number four, if Apple were to fall to a low price, we would buy a lot more, but not in this market. But not in this market. So some interesting comments by Buffett. He was also asked about specifically, where do you think the market needs to go to deploy more cash? And once again, he gave the same argument that we need it to be a lot lower for us to deploy the $350 billion they have in cash, and Apple was the number one bet they would make. The fact that he said I sold Apple too soon, I thought was really interesting because they bought it at a $500 billion market cap. They sold at about $3.5 trillion. So obviously at some point you need to take profits, but he's feeling a bit of regret. And, he's like the ultimate long-term investor that thinks he should never sell. But even he's acknowledging that maybe they took some profits. I think they sold like 50% of the position over the past year and a half at around 250, 275. S&P 641.34. Can we continue to break out and see some momentum? Robinhood is 66. That's up 2.5%. Oracle, that's up 3%. Nvidia trying to bust through 169. Snowflake is down today. It's like one of the only software names that's getting hit. Even Salesforce flipped green. So not sure why Snowflake is down. AAOI, Photonics name, that one's also red. And Micron is still red, even though it's getting some green candles. I'm more interested in the names that are red today versus the names that are green in terms of how the street is interpreting them and why they are going red when we're seeing a blistering green market across the board. Meta right there, 556 high of day. That is also up 3.62%. Obviously, if Trump tweets, this could all change, and if we get some bad headlines. But I think, and for those that are wondering why are we green, once again, Trump made some headlines last night by essentially claiming we can leave and end the war without reopening the strait, and that if people want oil, they can buy it from the United States, which, although it sounds kind of egotistical for him to say that, the underlying message that the market's interpreting is that we don't need to stay and monitor the Strait of Hormuz to end the war, which was like a precondition that the administration was talking about last week. If that's changed, if we flip from that perspective, if we don't need regime change, he also said we don't need to take all their uranium if we're not like obsessed with getting rid of their nukes. That means there is a path to an off-ramp that might be quicker than what people think. And it would be hilarious. Wow, 1.5% of the SP. It would be hilarious if April 9th, DJT tweets it's a great time to buy. And I kind of think he wants to do that, dude. Like, I really kind of think he loves the chaos of all this. He loves that we're all going through this shit, and he wants to end it with a final blow by saying it's a great time to buy. And if that were to happen on April 9th again, I mean, it would be an opportunity for not only people to buy the dip, but for us to maybe see when the end of this is going to happen. Now, what is the story they're going to paint in terms of the victory that they've been able to achieve? Is going to have to be some type of manufactured deal that claims that they've been able to get rid of the Iranian nuclear program or something to convince people it was a justified reason to do this. I don't know how they're going to sell it. All I know is if it ends, maybe the market has a chance of recovering. 140.5 on Palantir, that breaking out to 140 as well. So we're seeing a bit more momentum. JOLTS could ruin it this morning. Quite frankly, JOLTS has not had the impact that it's had over the past couple of years. I mean, we already know the labor market's weak. If JOLTS says, oh, we lost another 500,000 jobs that we were expecting, I don't know if the market tanks on it. And if anything, I think it increases the probability for a rate cut. So I'm not that bearish on JOLTS this morning, no matter what the number comes in. The street is expecting 6.7 million jobs. If we come in at 6 million jobs and we lost 700,000 jobs, yeah, that would suck. I don't know if that would tank us. I really think it would flip opposite, bad news being good news here. But we'll find out in about 7 minutes. Well, that comes out and we'll see what the market says. Why is it when the S&P is down 1%, my stocks are down 5%, but only up 2% when the S&P is up 1.5%? So that is the concept of beta. You are in probably names that are going to go up a lot more when the S&P goes up and go a lot more down when the S&P goes down. Now, granted, that doesn't always hold true, right? Some of those names might not be the highest quality companies, or they might just be dealing with different macro issues. But it's not guaranteed that when the S&P goes up 1%, those names have to go up 5%. Or when the S&P goes down 1%, those names have to go down 5%. But a name like NBIS is one of the best examples. S&P is up 1.7% on the day. NBIS is up 7%. S&P was down 0.5% yesterday. NBIS was down 10%. So, you have different names that have different levels of beta, but obviously they have different macro and fundamental arguments that either give them a catalyst or, give them a downside source of momentum on these days when the S&P goes up 1% or down 1%. We have a new high of day, folks, 642.40. We're grainy green. We are grainy freaking green right here, 642.28. Someone just bought $2 million worth of calls for the Qs, 595. Where are the Qs today? The Qs are at 568. Wow, that is pretty OTM. That's pretty out of the money right there. Even though we were at 595 not too long ago. Snowflake is announcing a new chief revenue officer. That's why the stock is down. So they're making a C-suite change. That's why that stock is getting hit. Meta right there up 4%. NBIS up 7%. Snapchat up 3%. Constellation, I'm not sure why that one's down 5.7, but that one's getting hit. Can we break out to 645 today? I mean, if we could get that move, that would be very nice. 645 on the SP. VIX is down 10%. Look, everything that we need to happen today is happening. VIX is down, oil's down, S&P's up. You're getting these OTM calls start to come in at high levels. Is oil actually down? Hold on. Oil's not really down, though. It's at 103. You want to see this thing go below 100 to really feel this is more legit, which that's probably why VG and Next are not really collapsing either. We'll get JOLTS in 4 minutes. Yeah, I mean, I think today's a great day to sell covered calls, unless yesterday was the bottom, and we're going to just V-shape up. Your covered calls should be in a relatively healthy space. And if we do, you'll be able to roll them and still be able to collect some good premium. I kind of doubt yesterday was the absolute bottom. I'm not saying we have to make a new low, but the idea that we don't test the lows from yesterday is not something I would be surprised by. But it's the first time in about 2 weeks we've seen a 1.5% move that's actually holding into the market open. Now it's only been 25 minutes. So, obviously we need at least a few hours to think there's a chance for it to hold. Look at Nvidia trying to get back to 170, 169.26. We might fill the gap at 645, then back down. That is very possible. Jason, I was talking to him last night. He was very worried we were not going to open above 638, and it's very nice to see that we are. So today on Technical Tuesday. We'll see what he thinks. He closed a lot. He did close a lot of shorts yesterday. And, Jason's pretty good with the timing. I mean, it worked. We flipped pretty green today, at least for now. So he went net short on Wednesday last week. That's when I asked if he's buying Meta, and he said, yes, he's buying puts. Yesterday, he closed out a decent chunk of those shorts, and maybe we actually hold up some of this momentum. 641.60 on the day. JOLTS we're getting it in 3 minutes. Until then, we do have a clip of Jamie Dimon, who is live today on Fox News. Let's see what he had to say. Then we'll get JOLTS in a couple of minutes.
I'm the CEO, Jamie Dimon, with a big announcement to make. But first, great to see you, Jamie. Your reaction to the breaking news and what we know about this war. What kind of impact has it had on the economy?
So first of all, welcome. Thrilled to be here, all the Fox folks. And, look, our economy is so big and complex and integrated and doing well. It's been doing well for years. It's prosperous. It's so this isn't going to have an immediate, it's one effect. So I just don't think it's too short really to affect the whole thing. So obviously gas prices going up are going to hurt people a little bit.
It's $4.
But they still have money to spend. They still have jobs. So remains to be seen.
What is that? How's the market reacted in your view?
I think the market, look, the markets are unpredictable, and it's hard for me to tell you exactly what. But I think they're just looking at, is there a chance something can go wrong? Now we should all hope nothing goes wrong. We should all hope that these bad people are, that we win this thing and clean up the straits, and that Iran is no longer a threat to everybody. And but the markets will be concerned until it's over. But I think it's very important. It's much more important that this be successfully completed than what the market does.
And that sounds like what the UAE and Saudi Arabia and the Gulf states are saying.
Yeah.
Finish this off the right way.
Yeah.
They see the urgency here.
Yeah.
Do you?
Yes. I hear some people say, they weren't an imminent threat. A threat means I'm threatening you. I might do something bad. These people have been doing something bad for 47 years. They've been killing people. They've been killing Americans. They funded that terrible Hamas thing. Several Americans were killed on October 7th. And so they've had proxy wars. They've been threatening people. I think people are surprised to find out that had a ballistic missile and go 3,000 miles. These are bad people, and they needed to be stopped. And just who decide what? Now, I don't know what the military knows. I don't know what President Trump knows. I just think now we've got to finish this thing and finish it right.
And
all right, so Jamie Dimon not as bearish on the prospects of this war ending, and he's actually more optimistic on engaging in the war, which maybe he is trying to frame the war in a different context for people, even though he knows that it's not necessarily the best for the economy at the moment. Obviously, if the war were to come to an end soon, Micron now getting a spike that's up 1% of the day, Robinhood up 2.5% of the day, then that would be different for the stock market to interpret in a more positive sense. S&P still moving, 642.60. Nvidia breaks through 170, just fell below 170, but we were back above it. And let's see the macro data now. March consumer confidence, 91.8 versus 87.9. That's bullish. So you got consumer confidence that's ahead of expectation. Let's pull up the JOLTS. We beat 6.8 million versus 6.7. 6.8 million versus 6.7. It's 6.88, so technically 6.9. That's 200,000 more jobs than what the street expected. S&P, you got a little bit of a green candle right there. Definitely not hating it. Let's see if we can get to 643. There you go. 200,000 more jobs available in the United States than the expectation. Well, some of the expectations are showing 6.89, and I'm looking at 6.88, which means we came in line. The other forecast I'm looking at came in at 6.7. So regardless of if it was 6.7 or 6.9, we are in line with the expectations, which is, I guess, what the street wants to see here.
Much stronger than the 87.9 that we were looking for. Sequentially higher than the 91.0, which is a subtle revision from 91.2. That would be the best since the end of last year when we were 94.2. So it is a good number. And if we look at the present situation, same thing. A solid number, better than expectations. 123.3. That would be the best since the end of last year as well. And finally, expectations, 70.9, better than the 68 and change we're looking for. It is the only numbers thus far that's not sequentially higher. Our last look was 72. 70.9 would be the lightest since 67 and change in January, but all in all, pretty good numbers. Job opening and labor turnover, always 2 months in arrears. This is a February number, expecting a number close to 6.9 million, comes in at 6,882,000.
Okay, so that's a miss. A couple different forecasts said we might come in at 6.7. If you look at the consensus versus the forecast, consensus was 6.9, forecast was 6.7. We beat the forecast. We missed on the consensus. It's not ugly enough for the street to be upset about that, which is why you're still seeing some of these green candles come up. And then consumer confidence was a pretty decent beat as well,
with a fairly large revision to the upside in the rearview mirror from 6,946,000 all the way up to 7,240,000. So obviously this read is a bit lower, but that 7,240,000, that would have been the highest read going back to May of last year. So the revision really is a pretty big deal, and it softens the blow a bit to the lighter number under 6.9 million for February. We see interest rates are to the downside, and even though, of course, oil's over $100 and Brent's even higher, we see that the Treasury market seems to have disengaged a bit from oil prices. Sarah, back to you.
Okay, thank you, Rick. And I'll just add another headline here. It doesn't not appear that we will get the Lisa Cook Supreme Court case today. So we'll continue to be on watch for that next time we get a decision out of the Supreme Court, but no decision on Fed Governor Lisa Cook. I'll pick up where Rick left off on the consumer, better consumer confidence, because gas prices, this is a big headline, they did surpass $4 a gallon in a national, across the national average. And that, is a milestone. It's about $1 more than we were last month. You feel this when you're at the pumps, higher prices, of course, in California. Now, a few silver linings. Number one, we've been here before very recently. 3 years ago, we were above $4 a gallon. Now, it didn't happen this quickly that time, so this can probably lead to some sticker shock, and Americans are feeling it intensely and acutely. But during that inflation spike in 22 and 23, we were looking at these levels. And then the other chart, and we've looked at versions of this before, but I do think it's worth mentioning, comes from Bank of America, which shows the percentage share of energy spending, basically, of consumers, and how that has just come down to below 4% of our wallet.
What do we think? What do we think? All the numbers that needed to go green today went green, whether it's JOLTS, consumer confidence, obviously the S&P holding on to a 1.6% move right here. Got rejected at 642.95, so just below 643. We couldn't break through. The VIX is down 11% on the day. I mean, VIX is still at 27. We got a lot lower to go. And the lower we do go, the higher the S&P can make a move on. Robinhood's up, Micron's up, Meta's up, NBIS is up, Snapchat's up, Exxon's up, VG just went red again, which is good to see. SoFi's up, software, Microsoft, ServiceNow, Adobe. Do people think this is the move that maybe gets us out of the choppiness that we've been in? Or is it part of the choppiness? Yeah, air test systems, 17% on the day. That was down a lot. Yes, I mean, a lot of these are reversing. A lot of these are reversing in a nice way. Part of the rally today is probably the end of quarterly rebalancing, managers, advisors, et cetera, putting cash to work. That is also true. Also, the CTA sort of systemic selling. Looked at some macro data yesterday. It seems to be relatively over. These are commodity trading advisors. They have various different algorithms and cycles in which they either sell a lot of stock or buy a lot of stock. And it's something I need to do a lot more research into, just understanding sort of the process of how CTAs engage in the systemic selling or buying of equities. But it looks like the selling, just based on a few charts that we looked at yesterday, seems to be over for the CTAs. And if that money's starting to rotate in, then, you've got a lot of money that needs to buy stocks, and you have a lot of stocks that are objectively cheap. Like, even if you think Micron's cyclical, trading at a 5 times PE feels cheap. Meta at 18 times feels cheap. More than half of the S&P 500 are now below their 50-day and 200-day moving average as of yesterday. Maybe some of those are now above it, but I mean, there's probably money that needs to come back in. Now, obviously, the rate cut part of the thesis is an issue. So the probability for a hike went down to 0.5% for April, which is good. The problem is the probability for a cut is still relatively low going into December. So, the idea of if we are back or not is going to be, I think, more contingent on rate cuts than not. And Bitcoin, I don't really think is going to get any love until we get the idea of liquidity coming back into the system. 67,000 on Bitcoin. Even if Bitcoin just stays around 65 to 75, I would be very happy this year, because betting on a move up to 120 again is just not easy to see. It also makes you remember all the shit that had to happen for Bitcoin to get to 120 back in October of last year. Like, it's hard to ask for that to happen again. Like, you just don't have that level of euphoria or momentum, which means, maybe Bitcoin takes a breather for this year. But as long as it doesn't go down to the 30, 40, 50 range, as someone who owns some of these crypto stocks, I would be happy with that. S&P 641, you got a red candle from 642.95, 641.50. Still feels decent on the day. The U.S. has lifted some sanctions on Russian-flagged container ships. Okay, that's good. At least for oil to come into the system, even if Russia makes money off that. Yeah, true. Today's the end of the quarter. Wow, I forgot about that. Today's the end of Q1, not even the month. Ah, crap, man. We're starting Q2 tomorrow. Yeah, that could definitely lead to either selling or buying pressure as we get into the end of the month. Let's listen to your Danny, get some of his thoughts on what's going on, and then we'll pull up some of these Buffett clips and see what he said about the markets and Apple itself.
Economy at this point, and whether that's factored into stocks.
Well, the stock market has been remarkably resilient. I mean, it is down, but the S&P 500 hasn't gone into full-out correction territory, and I think it kind of reflects the consumer as well. I think consumers have also been remarkably resilient, really, since for quite some time. I mean, we since the beginning of the decade, we had the pandemic and we had lockdowns. We had inflation, Fed raising rates, and through all that, the consumer continued to spend. I think you're right to point out that the consumer confidence data is very important, because it's that survey is very sensitive to employment, and I think it shows that the confusion about what's going on in the labor market that we got when January's payrolls were strong and February's were weak. I think on balance, you kind of average them together, and you conclude, as I think the consumer confidence data suggests, that the labor market's okay, and we may actually be creating, back to kind of normal job gains for this kind of economy, 50 to 60,000 per month. That's what everyone is expecting for Friday's number.
And as for Q1 earnings, Ed, looking at another quarter of double digit, we've seen some strategists bring in their year-end target. Today it's Wells. They go 7,800 back to 7,300. But I have to imagine you remain pretty optimistic about corporate earnings.
Yeah, I mean, basically we've had a PE correction here. The forward PE of the S&P 500 is down 16%. So it's been a correction in the valuation multiple. On the other hand, the market's down 8%, so that means forward earnings are up 8%. Earnings have been remarkably strong. Analysts did not get the memo about the war in Iran possibly causing a recession. And so far, I think the economy's resilience is being demonstrated in the resilience of earnings forecasts.
And so that's going to be the most important thing going into April 10th, which is that we need to see these companies give us rock hard guidance on this idea that we are not going to let go of the momentum and the upside to earnings and margin improvement going into the end of the year just because of the war. Because if the war is the basis for like Citigroup or Bank of America saying, hey, we think oil prices are affecting the quality of loans we can give, then obviously we're going to have some corrections in the overall banking sector. And the market's going to be wondering, okay, if Citigroup and Bank of America are having issues, then maybe the companies that they loan money to are also going to have some issues. But if you don't see that, and by April 10th, I think we started off also with Delta, the airlines are going to be reporting as well. If we don't see any of that, this war is basically something that didn't even happen in the context of earnings growth or in the context of at least earnings guidance. If we do see these companies come out and say, we cannot tell you guys what's going to happen over the next 90 days or over the next 365 days, I don't know if the market's going to get upset about that, but I do think the market's going to be a little like, okay, well, we don't need to buy your stock until you can give us more accurate guidance. And maybe that's going to be the bigger issue going into earnings. 169.64 on Nvidia. I still think it is a covered call market until we get an official ceasefire or end of war, because, you know, for Nvidia to go to 180 tomorrow is just asking a lot out of it. It means the S&P has got to gap up to 650, 655. And although that can happen, it's not likely, which is why I still think you sell the covered call and get some premium out of that. ServiceNow goes green. Microsoft goes green. Salesforce goes green. Rocket Lab still up 6% of the day. CoreWeave, that's up 7%. Iren's up 5%. Lumentum is up. Marvell. Jim Cramer just tweeted, I am all in Marvell. Marvell down from the highs today. Why would he tweet that, bro? First of all, he's not all in Marvell. He's not even allowed to own stocks. He literally tweets this stuff for the hell of it, bro. 98 to 93 on Marvell. I am all in Marvell. There you go. Would you do weeklies or monthlies? I would be doing weeklies. Every week you have to monitor these covered calls. So I would do weekly. Don't you think covered calls could get burned if we rip? Yes, but again, the predicate of your question is if we rip. The idea that we rip is very possible, but it's also very not possible. I mean, like, I think it's 50-50 right now if we get a massive rip up to, 690 on the S&P, which would be like a real rip. That would be, remember, the S&P was up 10% in one day, in 3 hours, when Trump said it's a great day to buy. That's the real rip that ruined everyone's covered calls. Do we get something like that? I don't know. If it were to happen, then it would be a real sort of 2.0 moment of Liberation Day. And maybe it does happen in the coming weeks, but the Iran war is a little bit more difficult to get out of than the tariffs. So once he does finally get out of it, maybe he's going to try to create that type of momentum. But I think you have some time for that to happen. Unless you think it's going to happen next week, then yeah, you don't sell the covered call. If you think it's going to take some time, then I think you navigate it. Also, remember, multiples are way higher if we rip from these. Like if we rip from 640 on the S&P, that is way different from ripping from 480 on the S&P, where we destroyed 2 years of gains on the April lows in 2025. I think that's why we had that 10% rip more than anything, because like 2 years of AI progress was decimated because of tariffs. And obviously it was for a silly reason that Trump was able to taco out of. Versus, 640 on the S&P is factoring in a lot of those gains. So it's not like those gains have been eliminated. So I don't know if we get that 10% intraday rally. I think we get like 3 or 4%. And that's, I still think being optimistic. But I would not risk it by not selling the covered call here. And again, you don't have to do it on the majority of your position. Do it on a portion that you're okay with selling if you are that worried that it ends up getting called away. Oil still spiking up right here, 103 on crude. That one's not necessarily going down right now. What delta for the weeklies? It really depends on how conservative you want to be. If you only care about premium, 0.5, 0.6. Obviously, if you care about keeping the shares, 0.2, 0.1. And if you want to get the middle spot, it's 0.3. I know people say 0.3 is like the sweet spot. I do not think 0.3 is a sweet spot. 0.3 gets challenged way more than people think. But, 0.25, 0.15 if you really want to make sure you have a chance of keeping the shares. Crude is down, is it? We are... Oh, yep, we went red. There we go. We went red on crude. We're still at 102, but we did go red on the day finally on crude. That's also a great sign to see. Next decade officially going red. VG continuing its red downturn. Nvidia 170.18, breaking out high of day on Mr. Nvidia. Yeah, as Adam says in the chat, 0.1 delta, 93% in your favor. If you really, really don't care about the premium and you just want to collect a little something in addition to your shares, then you don't have to be greedy, as you can sell the 0.1s and collect something. 170 on Nvidia. Can we hold it? Fell all the way back to 169 the last time we hit it. So now we got to see if we can normalize above it. The Q's high of day as well, or very close to the high of day, 567. Let's go to Buffett. Here's what he said this morning about markets. And this is where he talked a bit more about his Apple position as well.
I think to sell them next week or next month. So we want to be right on them.
Okay.
And we've had our American Express stock 30 years without having, Coca-Cola close to 40 years, 35 years. And on the other hand, there's things I changed my mind on fairly quickly. But the goal is to own the own businesses. And when we buy Occidental Chemical, we expect to own that 50 years from now. The world can change in some way, but that is, we do not buy that with the thought of resale.
You've sold a lot of a stock that's done very well for you, Apple.
Yeah, well, I sold it too soon.
Yeah, it's made.
But I bought it even sooner, so it worked out. Yeah, I think we've made over $100 billion in that pre-tax.
Yeah. But you're regretting it? You say you sold it too soon?
No. I don't have any ability to predict what stocks will do next week or next month, and I will buy them if they're cheap. I'll buy a whole lot of them if they're cheap, and I think I really understand the business. And Apple is still our largest single investment.
And you like it that way?
Yeah, well, if I didn't like it, I could sell it. I can. And I think it's a remark. It's better than any business we own outright. Now, we own a railroad that's worth more money than our Apple position, for example. They're both looked at the same way. I mean, they're both businesses. I think it's more predictable in a certain sense that the railroad will be around 50 or 100 years from now, but it doesn't earn the rate remotely on capital that Apple does. I mean, Apple is a business that you've got one probably, and your kids have got them. I mean, it's
not one. We've got like 20 of them.
Yeah,
and with the devices.
And actually, the Bell Telephone Company was that way at one point, but they were regulated.
Who's buying Apple? Who's buying Apple? It's one of those names that I don't think gets talked about as like a buy when it comes to retail. S&P back to 642, Apple at 249 right here. Nvidia, she is normalizing the 170s today. At least a little bit, 170.6. If we can just close above 170.5, that'd be nice. It's easier to buy Apple if you bought it a long time ago because your cost basis would, not have to substantially be threatened. But, it's also one of those names that's not really putting up the growth that gets a lot of people excited. I can understand why Buffett continues to be bullish. Obviously, they bought it a long time ago. The ironic thing about the whole Buffett-Apple buying, we've talked about this so many times, but if he didn't pull the trigger on Apple, he would have been underperforming the S&P 500 for the majority of his career. And, Apple saved him. Apple saved, because I think to be considered the greatest of all time, you have to outperform the index, right? Like that's the whole point of individual stock picking, is to outperform. Otherwise, why would you pick individual stocks? You just buy the whole country, buy America. So if he didn't have Apple, which he neglected tech for a long time, if he didn't have the biggest tech company, which I know he thinks is consumer hardware, but obviously Apple is technology, he would have underperformed. So it makes sense that he's super bullish on Apple, but the market giving Apple that premium over the past 10 years has been the single biggest reason for Berkshire's outperformance. 248 right there on Apple. It's just most of retail has not been that excited about it. Most of retail has not been that excited about this. Yes, the PEG is not that attractive on Apple either. Julie says, I bought Apple at $12 a share. Wow. Decades ago. That is pretty incredible. Bro's making me big bullish Apple. I still think that foldable phone is not going to work, bro. I really don't, but AI Siri, I'm a lot more bullish on. We just got to figure out how they're going to monetize it. Also, there was a headline on Google a couple days ago on last Friday that Apple's testing other partners besides Google for Siri. That's why Google fell to like 275. It's at 281 right here. So Google getting a nice big 3% jump as well. That is kind of bearish Google in the context of the Apple partnership. Obviously not bearish Google, the stock, but like, why is Apple even looking at other partners outside of Gemini? Like Gemini should be the only thing they want to use here. So maybe Apple's even thinking we need to diversify some of our models and try to get more diversity there. Yeah, Worldwide Developers Conference, that's coming up soon as well. That's also going to be important. Skya says I bought a lot of Apple at $2.54 and I'm still holding. Yeah, see, that's how I think about Palantir and Tesla. Like for the people that got in early on those names, you just don't sell. Like, you know, you have a $10, $12 average on Palantir. You know, people have $30, $40 averages on Tesla. Those are lottery tickets at that point. $2 on Apple is a lottery ticket. Kind of just let those shares ride out for a very long time. But just because the probability of those collapsing back to those levels is near zero. There is a chance, but it is a low chance. Speaking of Palantir, they extended their partnership with Stellantis yesterday, 5-year partnership, which is so cool because this is one of the first bigger automotive partnerships that they had back in 2022. Interesting is, you know, this is why it's been a cool journey to to cover Palantir. So this was the press release yesterday, 5-year extension, really important stuff. You can read more about it. And then someone commented, mate, you're just noticing the partnership with Stellantis. They've been crushing it for years. And I was like, trust me, I know. This was me back in 2022, looking like the person Palantir would target, talking about the Stellantis partnership.
Another day, another news release by Palantir. I know we had one yesterday with the Trafigura partnership to help resolve climate change. We've got a new one with Stellantis. Now, Stellantis, for those who don't know, is a company that owns...
It's crazy. It's freaking crazy, dude. It is a while ago, 2022. So Stellantis was one of those really important deals that we got when the stock was 7. That was like, hold on. These guys are one of the largest automakers on the planet. Obviously, the market's got to be excited about this. No, the market didn't care. Stock was stuck at $7-8 that entire year. It went lower than that at some point. But it is so cool to see 4 years later for the market to, you know, realize that there is a reason Palantir's operating system is now central to Stellantis's ability to expand. And why are they working with them for another 5 years? Well, they've gotten a lot of good results. If you read through the press release, basically over the past 5 years, AI decision-making has been enhanced. And one of the general managers made the quote that we are proud to deepen our partnership with Stellantis and to support them as they define what the AI-powered industrial and enterprise of tomorrow looks like. Obviously, the EV transition hasn't happened as aggressively, but that was a fear 5 years ago that they would need to be ready for EVs. And although that hasn't taken place, now the sort of AI-enhanced worker, in fact, Stellantis was one of the first companies that Palantir used as a case study to say, we are not going to replace people on the factory floor. We are going to empower them. And I think that level of empowerment has led to Stellantis wanting to continue using the software throughout the entire company. So big deal for Palantir. Hopefully that continues to give them more momentum and they see more and more of those partnerships as we get into the earnings in a few weeks, as they increase that net dollar retention. I mean, that really is the story on how they continue to grow. Up 3.5% of the day. Amazon's up 2.6%. SPY still holding 642. Nvidia, she's going for 171. She might be going for 171. I'll link that video for those that want to watch it. It's one of the OG old videos. This was June, right? This was May of 2022. This was right before the freaking Zelensky meeting. And even the Zelensky picture with Karp, which was like, oh, this is a big deal. Like Karp, Ukraine, Palantir, like even that couldn't get the stock. I mean, nothing was working. Absolutely nothing was working. You literally just had to have patience and some level of conviction that the story would play out. And over the long term, you know, ended up working. Snapchat right there, that's up 3. Meta 557, Nebius 9840. We're not really seeing red candles. I mean, what's red today besides oil and gas? Even SMCI is green. That's up 3%. Dell's down, but Dell's had a massive run. Dell is like up 30% this year, right? Dell, that's probably just profit taking more than anything. Dell's up 25% this year. So I wouldn't complain about Dell being red. What's actually red today? Even Micron flipped green finally.
The crypto stocks are all green except Riot. All the Bitcoin miners, the Neo Clouds are green. Open Door, that's green today. Is Open Door still going to 82? I'm just asking for the people that kept saying 82. I'm genuinely curious if people still believe in that. But Open Door right there, 457. Qs are green, Hood's green, Meta's green, Nebius, A-Lab. I mean, the VIX is red. Yep, I guess that's the main thing that's red. AAOI is red. I don't know about that one, dude. Like some of these names are so freaking hyped on Twitter, and like people are just blindly buying them. And it's like, yeah, there might be a thesis, but goodness, dude, these are small caps. They have low floats. They can easily be manipulated, and people are just piling into it. And I just am not that comfortable being in those names. Not to mention, it's already made a massive move. I mean, it's up 200% this year, and people are still piling into it, like it hasn't made a move. So I'm not sure if buying into strength will work, but obviously that name has done well so far this year. Visa's red. Constellation Energy, yes, Visa is red. There might be some more stablecoin stuff that came out today. Constellation Energy, there is a delay on one of the 3 Mile Island nuclear power plants. That is why you're seeing CEG get a 5% hit today, which is not that big of a deal. I mean, there's going to be delays in a lot of these infrastructure investments just because of the sheer amount of money and land and obviously logistics it takes to start these up. So this one was supposed to start in 2027, not starting until 2031. Obviously, it's a pretty hefty delay, but I don't think that's like a massive bear case for CEG. Remember, CEG has a 20-year deal with Meta. If they can get another one of those deals, although it's down 6% of the day, they get another one of those deals with like a Google or an Amazon, I think you would see the stock get a lot more excitement. CEG 279, down 6%. S&P going for 643 again. Let's see. This is the third attempt today to break through 643. Nvidia 171, baby. 171. There you go. There you go. Do you think early's 20s Amit would have got into something like AAOI? Yes, because I was young, impressionable, and I would easily buy into anything. I mean, it's the same thing with Ondas, right? There's a reason I have not bought that name, even if I interview the CEO. And I'm not saying I've been right to not buy the name because the stock was stuck at 10 for a couple months and now it's at 850. So I missed out on not losing $1.50. That's not the reason I'm saying I didn't buy it. The reason I didn't buy it is because I didn't know what I was buying. So as much as people are bullish and excited and look, you're talking to the CEO, like, shouldn't you buy it? It's like, no, like none of that is relevant. None of that matters. The hype doesn't matter. The euphoria doesn't matter. The CEO talking to me doesn't matter. None of that. It's all bullshit. What matters is, do you have a fundamental thesis? Because then if it goes from 10 to 850, I'd be excited to buy more. But I didn't have a fundamental thesis at 10, and I still don't have one at 850. So I'm not excited to buy it at 850. Now, maybe I should be. Maybe this is a good dip. But if I've not done the research on it, if I purely bought it because of the hype, like I see people buying these photonics plays just because of the hype they see on X, then it's a very miserable way to invest. The most miserable way to invest, the most toxic cycle of investing is when you buy something and you don't know why you bought it, because then you don't know why to sell it. You don't know if you want to you have zero conviction, thesis, or any level of, quite frankly, intelligence on making the investment. And obviously people will have their YOLO plays and their gambles, and I've had all of those as well. And you have to be okay with buying something where you don't know every little detail about the investment. But if you don't have some fundamental conviction and thesis, even if you're borrowing it from someone else to an extent, it becomes a horrible way to invest. And yeah, as I've gotten older, I just like I choose to be a lot more resilient and not let the noise get to you. And it's hard because when the stock keeps going up and you don't buy it, the noise can easily get to you unless you build some level of a thick skin to be like, look, I don't have to be in every single name. Microsoft right here, high of day as well, or close to the high of day at 365. Yeah, I mean, Micron, I'm sure Micron did that to a lot of people when it was pushing 470. A lot of people probably thought, man, I missed it. I need to be in. And Micron should be higher than 470 just based on those earnings, but it didn't work, and you had to have some level of conviction to tell yourself, look, a stock that's up 7x from the lows probably is not the right time to pile in right here. I need to be a little bit more, especially when the thesis is rooted on something that can be commoditized. Not saying it has to be a commodity down cycle for memory. It could be a very strong super cycle that makes Micron a $1 trillion company. But if you're not sitting well with that, even the idea of Micron being a $1 trillion company didn't sit well with me, dude. Like when I saw it, it's now at 368 billion. When I saw it at 550 billion, I was like, dude, this is Micron. Like if I'm buying it at 500 billion, I'm obviously looking for $1 trillion. Like why else would I be buying it at 500? So it's like that in and of itself is like, maybe that is going to happen, but I can't see that yet. So let me potentially stay away. Iran's supreme leader is in Iran, but is refraining from making public appearances as per Russia. As per Russia. Okay, so I wonder if the Russians are lying here or if they're telling the truth. The bull case for why they're telling the truth is because obviously the Iranian supreme leader is afraid of getting murked, as the kids would say. So he probably doesn't want to be shown in public. The bear case on why they're lying is they're trying to keep the appearance as if the Iranians have enough excitement and momentum in their leadership, when in reality the guy might be dead, and his refusal to make a public appearance means that he is dead. I don't know which way people want to interpret that, but that is what the Russians are saying right now as well. I'm curious to see if this guy's alive, dude, because at some point he's going to have to show himself and show people that he is still out there. Didn't you get into BMR after you interviewed Tom Lee? Yeah, and look, I've already admitted that we talked about that a while ago. Nvidia Hive Day. That was a mistake. I mean, for those that have been watching the channel for a while, I was bearish BMR for 3 months, dude. 3 months. Roll back the tape. I was like, guys, this is stupid. He's diluting. If you're bullish, just buy Ethereum. And then I'm human, you know? Then when you see 1,000 comments in the chat every day saying you're an idiot because BMR keeps going up and you're not in it, like you get that FOMO. And then you interview the guy and the whole chat is going crazy. This guy's the best guy on planet Earth. He's making so much money. He understands the new technological financial revolution of Ethereum. You know, as a human, you're susceptible to that stuff as well. Now when I play his clips, you guys want to kill this guy, but it's just so quick how things change, which I don't think people should be that angry at him. Yes, he mistimed the top. Obviously, it hasn't been the best situation, but even I am susceptible to the public. But that experience taught me to not be as susceptible anymore, because like my initial thesis was right. My thesis was like this dilution thing doesn't make sense. And then I gave in, and then I have all my friends that are buying it as well. And like that should have been my signal when Chris and Steve were buying. As much as I respect them, they're not crypto guys. They've never been crypto guys. So that should have been my signal to be like, okay, the fact that they're getting bullish means there's a little bit too much euphoria. And it is what it is. Sometimes, you know, those mistakes will happen. But what do you learn from those mistakes? You learn that if something's that overhyped, unless you have a thesis, which there is a thesis to Ethereum and BMR. The problem is the digital asset treasury space is screwed right now until crypto comes back. So the thesis doesn't even matter, because it doesn't matter what BMR does until Ethereum goes up, until Bitcoin goes up. MicroStrategy, BMR, they're screwed. And the only thing you can learn from that is to not give into the hype if you don't fully believe the hype. The covered calls did print until the stock fell by 70%. Like, the covered calls were amazing until the stock fell by 70%. Do you think BMR is cooked? No, I think it is cooked in terms of price action until Ethereum and Bitcoin get back to being bullish, which they're just not going to be until we get rate cuts, which is why I'm not actively buying any of the crypto stuff here. The only crypto proxy I would be buying is Robinhood, because there's a business outside of crypto, which even that's getting disrespected by the street. But until you get confirmation that crypto winter is done, I don't think you can buy the crypto names. And maybe you can trade them, but as an investment, you know, maybe you buy and weather them through the storm. But until the crypto winter is over, I'd rather buy them a bit higher from here, knowing that it's actually going to have a better shot to improve. I don't think the Clarity Act is going to do anything either. For those that are talking, I think the Clarity Act is a nothing burger. Like I think it will be a temporary moment of relief, but you need liquidity, and that liquidity is going to require some level of easing in rates or buying of treasuries, which we're not seeing any of those happen yet. Where is the 10-year, by the way? Where is the freaking 10-year? Meta's up 4% today. 10-year, 4.31. That's down today. Still too much at 4.3, but it is down. Tom Lee damaged his reputation with this. I don't think he ruined his reputation. I do think, and I've been pretty honest about this, I think there was no reason to go that hard into the crypto markets. And usually when people go hard into the crypto ecosphere, from what I've seen as a finance personality, and I've seen this on people taking sponsorships, and I've seen this on people, pumping meme coins and all this shit, is it's probably somewhat motivated. I shouldn't even say probably motivated. It's like 99.9% motivated by something to get rich quick. And with Tom, I guess his compensation package is incredibly motivated by being able to build this Ethereum treasury. And, the guy's made a lot of money in his life. He probably thinks he's like the best finance personality, and he wanted to really cash in and make a lot of money. And this BMNR thing popped up as an opportunity, and he took advantage of that. I think greed got ahead of him, because why else would you do it? Like, as you could put out a client note and say, I'm super bullish on Ethereum, and if the call doesn't work, who cares? The call doesn't work. You're gonna have some wins. You're gonna have some losses. It is what it is. Your reputation is still pristine. But if you convince primarily retail investors to buy something at 60 and it goes to 18, no matter how much they love you, it is gonna definitely take a hit on your reputation. It's just inevitable in the world of finance. Like, that's how it works. And although I think it'll recover long term, in the short term, it's obviously very painful. So, yeah, I think it was motivated by greed, and the best of the best, I think, are motivated by greed as well. I mean, Chamath, right? Chamath has started a new YouTube channel, and some of the content's actually really good. He has already 100,000 subscribers, and he's putting out life lessons of his past. But you look at the comments, dude, the comments are brutal. Like, the comments are not, thank you for this investing knowledge. The comments are like, oh, Mr. SPAC pump and dump king. And I'm like, goodness, bro. This guy is trying to recover his personal brand after decimating it by the investments that he pitched as like the next big 10, 20Xs. They all went to zero except SoFi. And now people have never forgiven it. And he's never said sorry, not once. He's never said sorry. And you can tell me, oh, people take personal accountability. I mean, I think that's BS. Obviously, personal accountability matters, but it is okay to say, I'm sorry, I got it wrong, and I hope in the future I can learn from my mistakes, like I just did with BMNR. If you can't apologize, if you have zero humility, I mean, the idea that people are going to want to watch your videos and care about your personal brand and be happy for your success, I mean, no, everyone's going to think you're a piece of shit. You're a douchebag. No one's going to be happy for you. And then I've seen in the comments on his videos, and I just, like, life-wise, I would not want to live with being 50 years old, trying to give some investing wisdom to the youth, and everyone thinks I'm a pump and dump king. Like, it's just so, like, life-wise, it would mess with me every day trying to get through my day knowing people just hate me for that reason. And so I think, to an extent, that's what's happening with Tom Lee on a lesser scale. Do you think his reputation can be fixed if it goes back higher, or it's permanent damage for Tommy because Chamath will never be able to get it back? Yeah, look, I think if BMNR is $60 again, which was like the top, right? A lot of it will be. I mean, winning cures everything, right? Winning cures everything. But the time frame is also really important. I mean, if it takes 10 years for Ethereum to get back to 4,000, which I don't think it will, I hope, then yeah, people are always going to remember that was the name that messed up a lot of their portfolio, or they're just going to take the loss and not really care about what Tom has to say again. The other problem here, forget the stock price and the asset going back up to the current level and that kind of curing a lot of the issues. The main problem with Tom Lee, and someone actually mentioned this at the meetup, is that he keeps freaking saying these stupid price targets. And objectively, I'm sorry, but they're stupid. To call Bitcoin 250,000 by the end of December, which he was doing in November, like, no, dude, Bitcoin was at, even when Bitcoin was at 130, the idea that it would go to 250 or Ethereum would go to 12,000, when you put those price targets up there and you associate that with yourself, which you don't need to do, like, it's so unnecessary. You can be like, yeah, I'm bullish. I think it'll go up. And if you're wrong, okay, you're wrong. It went down. But like, to say it'll go to, 250, no matter what, it's like, no, you're probably gonna be wrong. I mean, the day he said Ethereum bottomed at 2,400, it went to 1,800 3 weeks ago. like when you put out these numbers, you're putting a target on your back for no reason. That's what I think is messing him up more than anything. And why is he putting out these numbers? Because he's been more right than wrong on his price targets, explicitly on the numbers. And so he probably feels confident that the rest of the numbers will be right. But if you get them wrong, like vehemently wrong, then yeah, people are going to start to really doubt your ability to analyze the macro. And I mean, the same thing happened with Cathie Wood. Yeah. Cathie Wood saying Zoom would be a $1,500 stock. No splits, nothing. $1,500. That's $80 today. I'm not the best at math, but $80 is a little bit less than $1,500. When you put out these stupid price targets, it just seems like marketing. And when people think you're just marketing, they don't really want to trust or listen to any of your analysis. So, look, I don't think it'll take forever for Ethereum to recover, but if it does, that's where you got a broader issue. BMR with their 1889 up 3.3% of the day. Nvidia just below 171, but we did hit 171.40. We're now at 170.5. And again, let me be very clear. No one is supposed to bat 100. Warren Buffett didn't bat it. No one is supposed to be right all the time. You have to be okay with losing a majority of the picks or calls you make in the stock market. It is the process and how you conduct yourself during that process that makes or breaks your reputation. And the people like Chamath and Cathie, they've not conducted themselves in the best of ways. And the lack of humility, I think, is what really turns people off. Like, you're allowed to be wrong. No one's going to be right forever, but you can't be a dick when you're wrong. That's when you lose the faith of anyone who's believed in you. 640.14 on the S&P. Let's hopefully not see 639. Let's stay in the 640s. 102.33 on oil. Oil is still coming down, which is nice. Down about 0.5% on the day. Hopefully we can keep a little bit more of this momentum. Fun Extreme, thank you for the $10 super chat. I just now noticed you have 8,000 live viewers. I swear a year ago when I started watching you, you were barely touching 1,000. Big congrats. Thank you for the super chat, and thank you for the kind words. It means a lot. Yeah, it's definitely been a big change over the past year. And, you know, the exciting thing about that change has been actually getting to see a lot of people in person. I mean, part of the reason for the meetups has been because of the increase in the growth of viewership. I thought it would be a good idea to meet a lot of people in person. And so it's been super fun. It's been super exciting. And the LA meetup, we'll talk more about that later, I think was a culmination of that viewership growing. And it was really cool, dude. It was really, really cool to see people in person. And it made me a lot more excited for future meetups. You know, I kind of thought the meetup would not have the best vibes because obviously we were like literally Saturday was the meetup and Friday we fell almost 2% on the S&P. So I kind of thought the vibes would be, you know, people would generally not be that happy or not be that excited. But man, people had a blast. And I'll have the pictures out pretty soon. But people really didn't care about the market being down. They just cared about having a community they could talk to about it with. And I think that's the special thing of what we're building here. Micron 326, Ondas 848, Nvidia 170.3. Did we lose 640? We didn't lose it yet. We didn't lose it yet. 640.10. Let's hopefully not lose it. Yes, we will have Technical Tuesday today. Amit's come a long way since 27 viewers. You know, I went through the analytics. There were 9,600 viewers at the peak yesterday. So we were not at 27. You know, the only reason I care about the viewer count, it's not like it's a vanity metric in the context of like the number of people watching. But for me, when I'm talking about something, I need to know like how much time to spend on a topic. And if we're watching a clip or I'm going off on something or we're looking at, if I see the viewer drop off or I see more people coming, like there's certain moments where you focus, like when the markets are open, that's when you really have to focus on a lot of different headlines coming in. And then when you want to talk about an individual topic, you can do that a little bit later. But the viewer count to me is just a way to navigate the stream and make sure that you're not over allocating time. Because I don't have a production crew like CNBC does. So there's no timed segments. I have to like do this on the spot. And the viewer count is the best way to do it. So yesterday when it was like 50 people, I was like, okay, I have no idea. I hope people are okay with what we're talking about right now. But that's why I can't stream on X, because X is not real numbers. They're juicing up they make the impressions count as the real viewers, which is BS, right? Like if someone scrolls through your stream, that doesn't mean they're actually watching it. And that's why I refuse to stream on X, because it's just fake numbers. And I mean, I knew X was fake when there were 2,500 people with me a year and a half ago watching the Costco earnings, and there was nothing to watch. We were just listening to. I was like, there are not 2,500 people listening about hot dogs today. So that's what told me I kind of need to just stick to YouTube. SPY, we lost 640 for a second, and then we bounced. We hit 639.95, then we bounced right back to 640. It'd be very nice if we could keep 640. What was Steve's big announcement? I cannot say because he's making a video about it. Although if you follow me on Instagram, you would have seen what the announcement was. I don't want to say it because he told me not to say it on the stream, but the people that were there saw it. And I'm sure some people can say in the chat what his announcement was. I will neither confirm or deny, but he will have his own video coming out announcing it. It's a pretty big announcement. It's an important one. The whole crowd started applauding when he made his announcement. But he'll make a video soon. Let's just say he's going to be streaming a lot more. Let's just say he's going to be streaming a lot more. Nike earnings today. Yes, we're going to have Nike earnings after the bell, and then we'll get into Technical Tuesday. He bought a milking cow. That is crazy. Dude, some of the gifts you guys got for Steve at the meetup were also wild. Shout out to Maria. She bought him like these milk jugs and cookies. And he didn't even get to eat all the cookies. We ended up eating all the cookies, but the cookies were incredible Los Angeles cookies. So shout out to Maria for that gift. SPY loses 640. SPY loses 640. He did buy back Mac Mini. That is not the announcement, but that is going to help him in his future endeavors. But that is not the official announcement. He is running OpenClaw on the Mac Mini. He is like getting really deep into the weeds of Anthropic and Claude and all that stuff. So he did get a Mac Mini. Nvidia 170, S&P 639. You know, to be honest, if we hold even 637, I'd be happy today. But we are getting a little bit of a dump right here. It's what, almost 11 o'clock. Google at 281. Google down from 285. Oil, did we just go to 104? No way. We were just at 102. There's no way we're at 104. Well, we're not at 104, but we did flip green. How did that happen that quickly, bro? Was there a headline 102 to 103? We were going down. Now it's going up. IRGC says that. What is this? IRGC says that American AI firms play a central role in designing and executing assassinations, and announced that for every act of terror in Iran, the corresponding facilities of these companies will be struck. Oil's at 104 now. Yeah, my chart might be a little late. Yeah, you're right. It is at 104. Yep, you're right. 104. Okay, 102 to 104. So the Iranians are saying we're just going to kill people if they attack us. That's not something new per se. S&P is still going down. IRGC states that it will respond to any assassination by targeting a U.S.-linked company. The statement advises employees to leave these workplaces and calls on nearby residents within a 1-kilometer radius to move to safer areas. You know, my gut tells me they are going to eventually show the supreme leader in public, and they're getting ready to like put out the video, and they are warning the United States of killing him. And if they do kill him, they're going to target other U.S.-linked companies. They already targeted a university the other day as well. And maybe that's why they're putting out this statement, which goes back to Russia's point that he is alive, but they're just not showing him in public yet. Also, a Ukrainian officer was killed in Dubai after an Iranian missile strike hit the Emiratis hotel. I don't know if that headline could be causing an oil spike, but you do have a Ukrainian officer getting killed in an Iranian missile strike in Dubai. So should I not go to work today? I work at Amazon. I think they're talking about if you're near the Gulf states and you work at these US-linked companies. I don't think the Iranians would actually target someone living in the United States. I mean, they probably would want to, but that would not be something that Trump would be happy with. 638, we're losing some steam. We're losing some steam. By the way, the warning of these companies, there's 18 of them, including Microsoft, Apple, Google, Intel, and Boeing, stating that they will be considered legitimate targets in response to a terrorist operation carried out by the US and Israel. So Iran's RGC warning American tech companies that if there are any more assassinations, they will engage in terror attacks against those companies. Is that really why we're dropping? That can't be the reason, dude. Is that really it? That is, I mean, the oil spike is actually why we're dropping, but is that spiking oil, that thing that the Iranians just said? Snapchat's getting an activist investor. That just came in. Snap is up 7%. The activist investor is IRENIC. I've actually never heard of these guys. IRENIC Capital Management. Irenic Capital Management building a position in Snapchat. That's why that stock getting a move right here. Weird. I mean, I don't know if anyone's taking these Iranian threats that seriously. I don't think that's the reason we're going red, dude. We're not red, but we are losing some steam here. Nvidia loses 170. Yeah, we're really seeing some momentum die out right now. It could just be 11 o'clock slam. VG is going green, of course. The VIX is probably not down 11% anymore. Nope, the VIX is at 28. It's only down 8%. VG, gas, and the VIX are up. The S&P and Bitcoin starting to lose a lot of their excitement. Yeah, we need Davis to rub the Bulbasaur today. We need that to happen. Dude, the only reason he bought the Bulbasaur on stream yesterday is he has this like inside joke with a girl that he likes with the Bulbasaur. I'm telling you, guys do everything for women. Like that's really what like contrary to what you guys think about me and Davis, he actually is talking to girls and he has this inside joke with this girl about the Bulbasaur and he wanted to screenshot him being on the stream in front of a lot of people rubbing the Bulbasaur so he could send a Snapchat to the girl. Like that's really, guys, all we think about is women. Like the only reason we want to get rich in the stock market is to impress women. Like that's really the only thing that's happening. But he needs to freaking rub the Bulbasaur again. 638.50 on the SP. Micron losing it. Nvidia losing it. Ondas losing it. Constellation getting worse. Visa getting hit as well. As that one continues to go down. And even more for men. Oh my gosh. You guys are hilarious. Fallen, thanks for the $5 super chat. I can't wait to see you in Chicago. Kind of antisocial, but want to see you in person. Also taking my girlfriend, and she calls you the bell guy. A bunch of you at the LA meetup brought your significant others. There was actually a lot of women that brought their husbands or boyfriends, to be honest. I think it was even more than the guys who brought their girlfriends and wives. And that's always really cool because usually it's the guy. But it was very nice to meet all the couples. And yeah, I mean, look, if you're antisocial, you don't talk too much. I mean, really, when you get in there, dude, I am surprised every single time we do a meetup. Every time. Like the energy, like within milliseconds, people are talking, they're energetic. This was the line outside of the venue. This was 20 minutes before we got started. Look at that. This was at the premixer at the bar. I mean, people just start talking. These are all strangers. None of these people know each other. None of these people know each other. And every single time, it's one of the most fascinating things about this concept of these meetups is we're all so desperate for community that people just introduce themselves. They say hi and they start a conversation. So I think regardless of your social skills, you will enjoy the process of being there. All right, S&P keeps falling down. Can we stop this? 638.20. We were just at 643 or close to it. Can we please go back to green? We don't even really have the headline, bro. That Iranian terror attack threat, that can't be the headline. That can't be the actual reason why we're losing steam right here. And I know we got to be grateful because we're still up 1% of the day, but still. Bitcoin's getting hit. MicroStrategy's getting hit. MSTR down 3% right there. I made Chris Patel uncomfortable by telling him he's a good-looking guy. Dude, Chris had a freaking army around him. I saw this picture after the meetup. Look at this thing. Look at it. Look at Chris. He's like freaking preaching. Look at this. This is great. This was outside of the venue. Chris had like 30 people listening to him preach about VG probably. That was so great. And that's why it's also cool, right? When Chris, Steve, Sam, all these people come out because, they're able to talk about the things they know about and really express a bunch of different ideas. 638 S&P. Let's see if we lose 638. Let's see if we lose it. Did you find the UK venue? No. Please email me. Again, amit@akcoms.com. Comms with 2 M's. I know a bunch of people reached out. We are finishing up Singapore and Chicago. When Chicago's finished up, we're finalizing Singapore, even though that's pretty much finalized. Just need a couple logistics. We are going to start planning for the UK probably in 2 weeks. So if you have some insight on a venue or some deal you can give us, please email and reach out. And we'll get that started pretty soon. Iran, that's up a little bit, but it's lost the majority of its move. Broadcom I bought yesterday at 295. It's at 300, still down. Iranian army, we targeted the industries belonging to Siemens and Telecom in Ben Gurion and Hafia. Maybe that's your headline, folks. Iranian army saying they targeted American industries inside of their own country. Where is Hafia? Is Hafia in Iran? No, hold on. That's Israel. My bad. That's Israel. Okay, that's actually worse. And Ben Gurion's probably also in Israel. I know I'm saying these names wrong. I'm sorry. Yeah, Ben Gurion's in Israel. Okay, so they are targeting Israel. That might be creating some issues. I know I'm saying it wrong. I'm sorry. It is what it is. And then another quote from the Iranian army. Today, we targeted strategic and vital communication centers in the occupied territories with suicide drones. What the hell is a suicide drone? Suicide drone. What is that? A suicide drone is an unmanned aerial vehicle equipped with explosives designed to fly to a target area, search for a target, and destroy by crashing into it. These one-way weapons offer high-precision, low-cost alternatives to cruise missiles. Okay, so the drone kills itself, basically. It's a one-way trip drone. Iranian army, we will continue to respond to any aggression without any hesitation until the specter of war is completely removed from Iran and the aggressors are punished. Okay, so the reason I didn't know what suicide drone meant is because I'm so used to hearing suicide bombing, and I think of someone killing themselves to bomb other people. Obviously, it makes sense that the drone would kill itself to kill other people, but I had to put 2 and 2 together. But okay, so 4 headlines. They're targeting American tech companies. They're targeting Siemens and Telecom in different regions in Israel. Number 3, they are deploying suicide drones, and then number 4, they will continue to respond to aggression without any hesitation. Those 4 put together is, I think, why oil spiked. S&P getting a little bit of a bounce. Crude is still at 104. VG also just pumped. You're right. Siemens is German. That is correct. Siemens is not an American company. That is a German company. Siemens stock is up 2% today. But those are your headlines. I don't know if that's enough to get us red on the day. It definitely is pumping oil. Just any headline that says aggression is continuing is bad for oil. S&P getting a bounce off 637. If we can get back to 640, I feel like that would be bullish after losing a decent chunk of pressure. Let's get an update on Hegseth and what he said earlier today, and then we'll keep going from there.
And has more. Megan, welcome
back.
Hey, Sarah, thank you. Happy to be back, and good morning. But that's right. The Trump administration today forcefully pressuring NATO allies to get involved in the military action against Iran. As you said, both the president and the defense secretary, Pete Hegseth, this morning are suggesting that NATO countries should be taking action to secure the Strait of Hormuz.
There are countries around the world who ought to be prepared to step up on this critical waterway as well. It's not just the United States Navy. Last time I checked, there was supposed to be a big bad Royal Navy that could be prepared to do things like that as well.
Now, Hegseth went on to say that since the U.S. uses the strait dramatically
like that as well.
should, one, buy it from the U.S., and two, build up some delayed courage, go to the strait, and just take it. He added, quote, "You'll have to start learning how to fight for yourself. The USA won't be there to help you anymore." And guys, all of these comments appearing to confirm some news we got last night from the Wall Street Journal, which is reporting that the president has told aides he's willing to end the US's military campaign against Iran, even if the strait remains largely closed. The Journal says Trump had decided in recent days that a mission to reopen the strait would push this conflict past his desired 4 to 6 week timeline, so we could instead begin to pressure allies to take the lead on reopening it. That appears to be what we're seeing play out publicly this morning. Guys.
So when do we expect some sort of official word on that? Or is it just as these updates come?
As these updates come, at this point, they say they're continuing to work towards a deal. They want to work diplomatically, work on negotiations, but that they are, of course, as they have been saying, preserving their options for further military operations if they need, including boots on the ground. For now, they're still working on it. You know, Hegseth, I will say, also sort of downplayed the 4 to 6 week timeline, not wanting to put as fine a point on it, saying he didn't want to telegraph too much to the Iranians on what was coming next. So we continue to take this as it comes, but I do think as we see them publicly pressure allies to get more involved, it's clear that that's sort of the direction that at this point the administration is leaning.
Still waiting for any kind of clarification on from the Iranian side that any discussions or back channel chats are happening. Meantime,
Trump to the New York Post, the war against Iran won't last much longer. I think that might be the reason you're seeing a textbook V-shape right here on the S&P, 637 to almost 640. Trump tells the New York Post the war against Iran won't last much longer. That is your headline. I mean, it's not really anything new. He's been saying this for 3 weeks. Even if he calls up all these smaller media outlets to tell them on the phone exclusively that the war won't last much longer. That is not new news, but 640 on the S&P. I guess that's enough. I guess that's what the market wants to freaking hear every time to feel a bit more excited that this war is going to end. I guess that's what we're seeing here, 640 S&P.
The strait remains largely closed. The Journal says Trump had decided in recent days that a mission...
the Pakistanis are in Beijing today, Megan, and there's some game theory about whether or not the Chinese and the Pakistanis might be some kind of guarantor of a deal.
Absolutely. We're seeing different sorts of sort of alliances emerge on this. The Pakistanis and the Chinese urging more peace in the region. The Iranians, as you say, continuing to deny that there are any negotiations at all. The administration has been asked about that repeatedly. They emphasize that, you know, the Iranians are just speaking to a domestic base and that they say, of course, there are real negotiations happening. We don't know exactly where or when those have been taking place, who exactly is involved, especially on the Iranian side. So waiting for more details on that, but the administration downplays that. They say just because the Iranians are denying that anything is happening doesn't mean there aren't real talks taking place. We're, of course, though, waiting to see more details on if that's true.
Megan Casella, thanks so much. For more on the war in Iran and the impact on your portfolio, let's bring in Phil Camporelli.
All right. I mean, this is the headline-driven market that we are living in. Look at it's literally a textbook V. If we can go all the way back up to 642, we will complete the V shape for the day. Is oil going down? Oil's still going up. Crude's at 104.30. Oil's not going down. Look at that. Look at it's almost a 641. This is unbelievable. If you went short less than 20 minutes ago, if you did not cover, you are getting ripped on your short. And if you went like net long leveraged at 642.50, I mean, now you might have a chance to at least break even or make some money, but you got ripped because we went down to 637. I mean, it's just an incredible market for traders if you have some level of interpretation of the headlines and you can kind of time it correctly. If not, it's, I would imagine, a very frustrating market for traders because there's no trend. And the trend gets broken. It's almost like Trump is watching the S&P on his phone and deciding when to tank it or when to pump it. Like, that's what it feels like. Maybe this New York Post headline is getting us some green. Maybe just a liquidity grab. Now we rip and break 642. I mean, that would also be very textbook, right? That is a move that we've seen happen many times, at least not this year, but many times in 2025. We would see 2% rip, lose 40% of that rip. You're up 1.2%, and then you recover the 2% move, and then you go up even higher. And you can replace 2% and 1% with different numbers on the S&P, but like, we've seen that so many times last year. We've barely seen it this year, and every time we've seen it, it's got faded. Maybe we see it today, and maybe it starts a trend of something that's better until we get another headline that takes it down. Nvidia back up to 170. Micron still struggling, but green on the day. The Q's at 567, and Hood up 2%. Meta at 554. Where's the VIX? The VIX should be going down. By the way, Warren Buffett had a very special relationship with someone. VIX is back down to 10%. It was only down 8%. Now it's back down to 10%. Warren Buffett had a special relationship with Bill Gates. Bill Gates has been a massive investor inside of Berkshire Hathaway, and Warren Buffett has been a massive investor in the Bill Gates Foundation. Today, Buffett said he hasn't talked to Bill Gates since the whole Epstein file was unveiled and Gates was accused of being in them. So Buffett has purposefully not spoken to Bill Gates since then. It's kind of crazy, but Berkshire Hathaway has donated $43 billion to the the Melinda Gates Foundation. Wow. Buffett said, I don't want to be in a position where I know things to be called as a witness. And Buffett also said he's not sure if they will continue to invest in the foundation. So, not the prettiest sight for Bill Gates based on that revelation. Oracle right there, going green again on the day, 2.3%. 2.3%. If we say the war is done, what was the point if there was no regime change and the Strait is still closed? Seems like Iran won't let Trump talk so easy. This is the same question that every single person is asking right now. What the hell was the point? It is not political to ask your country a question around why did we go in if none of the achievements were achieved or objectives were achieved. But the objectives that are being thrown out by Pete Hegseth were to decimate their military, which apparently has been achieved. I cannot confirm or deny if that's been achieved. My gut tells me, wait a second, if it's been achieved, why can't we take our ships through the Strait? Like, if their military is, if their ships are at the bottom of the Gulf, then we should be able to just freely go through the Strait as much as we want. Like, it's very confusing to me when they keep saying we've ruined their military, but we can't achieve basic things like getting oil through the Strait. So that's what they're telling us. I quite frankly don't care if they've achieved their objectives or not, because politically, I don't care if they want to do X, Y, or Z, or if they accomplish X, Y, or Z. I care about ending the war so the market can go up. And so that is a very important question you asked, and it's a political question that will probably dictate the outcome of the midterms. But for the markets, which also don't really care about Iranian liberation or regime change, they just care about oil going down, the Strait of Hormuz being open. The closer we get to them talking on the necessity to achieve all these major objectives that seem kind of impossible to achieve, the easier it is for oil to go down and for the market to go up. And hopefully we'll see some of that happen soon. But yes, a lot of people are confused with what the point of this was. I mean, and that's that's another, as John says, right? We made it so Iran couldn't wage war for another 20 years. Maybe, that's we will find out over time. Iran is, launching suicide drones. So we definitely didn't take out their suicide drones if they're launching suicide drones in Israel today. Which, again, when you see that headline, it really makes the market upset, because the market's like, if we keep saying we decimated their military and we can leave the region, and then Iran has these aggressions where they fight back, we obviously didn't get rid of all the suicide drones, So maybe we put them back 20 years, maybe not. But at this point, I think the market just wants some clarity. And until then, I'm not sure exactly how this fully goes through. If we get 100 vessels to go through the strait, they can no longer attack all of them, but they can attack the first few, and obviously no one wants to be the first. Well, that's the point, right? The U.S. does not want to have any ships escorted by either them or their allies to be the first ships that get hit in this inevitable conflict that would have to take place if we were to go through the strait without their permission. The pushback against that claim is that if we've completely destroyed their military, why should we be worried about any pushback from their military going through the strait? Well, we obviously haven't fully decimated their military if we're still worried about these first couple shots that we have to deal with. And I think it's fair to ask the question about, well, then what did we exactly achieve, especially if the Ayatollah is still in power? But again, those are political questions that I quite frankly don't care that much about. I just care about, do we have enough of a sentiment shift in the administration to flip for them to conclude the war should be over soon? And I guess we will find out. 641 S&P. We are $1 away from completing the V-shape. We are $1 away from completing the V-shape. TE had bad earnings today, T1 Energy. That's why this got hit. Josh says they don't have to wage war. They can just be dicks about the strait. That is also true. And well, that's the other thing. It's like Iran doesn't have to wage war for the next 50 years. But if they continue to hold the strait hostage, it is, it's not going to be pretty for oil prices, which I guess is the broader issue. I remember so many people saying 2 to 4 weeks for winning is leaving Iran with uranium and control over the strait winning. Again, that's going to be a political question that's interpreted by the American people when they vote. It will be winning for the market if we leave, even if they keep all their uranium, even if they keep their sovereignty over the strait. As long as they don't drop a nuke on someone, and as long as the strait is open, markets will be able to function the way that markets have been functioning for the past 3-4 years on the hype of AI and earnings and continued momentum. So it'll be a win for the market, but geopolitically, is that a win for the United States? I don't know. 642 S&P. Look at that V. Look at that V. That is incredible. If Nvidia can break 171, which it's getting close to, that'll be another V. This is nice to see. Nice to see. 641.93 on the S&P. Palantir, are we pushing 145? We are not yet, but that is also a nice V. We were at 143, down to 141, right back almost to 143. I mean, you don't understand if the strait stays closed, we're all screwed. No, I get it. My interpretation of what Trump said this morning is actually, I think, more bullish, because if the Iranians close the strait and Trump is willing to leave, even if the strait is closed, inevitably they're going to open the strait, because the Iranians also want to make money, right? And they make a lot of money from the strait being open. But they just don't want to keep the strait open when the U.S. is like intimidating them and being a bully. So 1,000%, you are right. If the strait is closed, we're still screwed. It doesn't matter what happens across the entire world. If 20% of the world's oil supply is not moving, we are screwed. But the first step of that being open is either a military confrontation, which I don't think we want to do, or we leave. And the Iranians are like, all right, cool, you're not intimidating us anymore. Now we can get back to business. And if Trump is legit thinking of leaving, as per the Wall Street Journal headline last night, without having to reopen the strait, like if his ego is enough to be like, we can still claim we won without reopening the strait, and then inevitably the strait reopens probably a couple weeks later after they leave, or honestly a couple hours after they leave, then the Iranians can tell their people, we won, we beat the big bad United States, we didn't open the strait until they left. The reason they left is for us to open the strait. They can paint that story to the people. And then the Americans, the Trumps and Rubios of the world can paint the story that we decimated their military, which is why we left. And we don't even need the strait because we're producing so much oil, which was the entire point of Trump's tweet this morning. Like, that's why I said the tweet was bullish. The whole point of this tweet this morning is Trump trying to stroke the ego of the American oil production apparatus by saying, look, I have a suggestion for you to our allies. Buy oil from the U.S. You don't have to get it from the Strait of Hormuz. Because I think the underlying tone is him realizing we're not going to be able to open the strait from a military confrontation. So let's leave. Let's imagine that we've already won the war. And then inevitably it'll be opened up once we leave. But we don't want them to claim they're opening it because we're leaving, because that would seem like we're losing. But if we can somewhat make the argument that we won and then we leave and then they open it, then boom, we're back in business. That's why I thought the tweet was bullish today. And I think the market agrees with me, at least for now. Why weren't they buying oil from us in the first place? That's a good question. I don't have an answer for that. Again, I'm not giving credibility to Trump saying buy oil from the US. I am giving more credibility to him saying this for the pure perception of him being able to make the argument that we can leave without needing the Strait of Hormuz open, even though obviously we need the Strait of Hormuz open. I just want this thing to be over so we can focus on earnings and actual things happening in the market. Can we get back to talking about Sam Altman on podcasts? That was more fun than this freaking geopolitical coverage every single day. Hopefully we're closer than not to an end. But I don't know. Oh, we got Johnson live. Let's see what he's saying as well. Or he was live. Let's pull this up real quick.
Senate has to do their job and help us on this heavy lift. We have to get the government funded, and they're playing games with real people.
Let's just put everybody in a room, lock the door, and work this out.
I believe that we should never leave Washington, D.C. until everything is funded, but we should never get to a moment where we're not paying federal workers.
A new column is asking the same questions.
Okay, so Johnson was live earlier this morning. The DHS bill was approved from an emergency action by Trump, so that's why TSA has cleared up. But the lockdown still could happen, or a government shutdown, if if an entire bill is not officially approved. So we got a little bit of relief based on what Trump signed. Yeah, this was Johnson this morning. Let's pull this up. But obviously, we are still not in the best situation until the Democrats and Republicans come together to sign a better spending bill.
Speaker Mike Johnson joins us now.
They sent the bill in the dead of night. It was about a 2:30 a.m. vote, and it came to us right before everyone was scheduled to go home. We passed the bill, the full funding bill, a CR, for 8 weeks, clean, nonpartisan, no tricks on that at all.
Okay, we got 2 months, 8 weeks, 2 months until we have to deal with this again. So if they can't figure this out in 2 months, we'll be screwed again at the airports.
Just to keep the whole Department of Homeland Security funded for 8 weeks so the parties can work out the differences. We thought that would be passed by unanimous consent on Monday, and it didn't happen in the Senate. And so we've got a dilemma. The outrage, and the reason we were so upset, Lawrence, is because they sent us a bill that literally put the number 0 in the bill for the funding of border security and customs and immigration enforcement. We can't do that. That was the biggest issue in the 2024 election, and it's outrageous to us. Just in those two agencies, CBP and ICE, you're talking about 98,000 hardworking Americans, self-sacrificing people who have to pay their mortgages and put food on the table. They wanted to zero them out. We cannot be a part of that. So we're calling on everybody. Look, the House members are in their districts working right now. We can bring them back on a moment's notice for a vote. The Senate has to do their job and help us on this heavy lift. We have to get the government funded, and they're playing games with real people's lives.
Now everyone is upset. Even Delta is. And this is what the CEO is saying. Watch.
Well, given the lack of leadership that we've seen coming from our elected officials, the fact that we would continue to extend courtesy opportunities for them to bypass the mess that they've created, we want to make sure they understand what they're and stand in line just like everybody else. We let their offices know ahead of time, and I think they understand why we had to do what we did.
How long will the pause continue for those perks?
At a minimum, until everything is back and running normally, the workers are paid, and at that point, we'll decide whether we continue it.
I got to be honest, Mr. Speaker, I don't think they deserve the perks.
No.
All the airlines should follow suit. Why do we have to wait in the line for 5 hours and they get to go to the front of the line?
I agree 100%. The airlines are right. I mean, there are some occasions where members of Congress get escorted around for security reasons at heightened threat environments and all that kind of stuff. But my members don't do that. They don't skip the line. They're crazy. They represent their constituents. So if anybody's been taking advantage of a perk like that, bad look, obviously. Congress has to do its job. The first function, the first responsibility of government, Lawrence, is to make sure that we're keeping the homeland safe. And the Democrats have shown over and over they value the protection of criminal illegal aliens over the protection of American citizens, and Republicans can have no part of that.
When does this end?
Soon, I hope. We have to get the government operating again. As I said, I can call the House members back for a vote as soon as we get something worked out with the Senate. Obviously, we're working.
Does anyone have any faith that in 2 months and 8 weeks, this will be over? Like, the war's got to be over first, I feel like, for them to even come to a agreement, the Democrats and Republicans, on a real official spending bill. And if the war isn't over in 8 weeks, I think we have bigger things to worry about. But the fact that the government is not funded properly in the middle of a war is also crazy. But ironically, it's almost like the war has to be over for the politics of it to subside in order for Democrats and Republicans to come together to be able to vote on something. I mean, it is absolutely crazy in terms of how this is playing out. And the only bit of hope that we can have is that this thing is going to come to an end soon. Again, every time Trump tweets out or tells all these reporters that the war is ready to end, it's him wanting to find an off-ramp. And I know it's hard to find the off-ramp because we're in a much stickier situation than any of the situations he's been in before, but definitely feels like he wants to. I don't know if he's going to get all the credit, though, this time. Last time when the market rebounded from the tariff liberation lows, Trump got a lot of credit. Like, people were almost like praising him that he gave us the best dip to buy in the middle of a bull market that we've ever seen, right? 30% drawdown. You don't get those in a bull market, especially on the index. I don't know if he's going to be praised even if we recover, because I think people are just going to kind of be tired of the whiplash of it all. And people are also going to be asking at least the tariff taco, you got some deals out of it, supposedly, with the EU and Korea and Japan and all this. And there was at least the Middle East investing trillions. Like, that was at least the headline, even if it's not real. Apple said they're going to invest $400 billion. I don't think Apple's ever going to invest $400 billion. But you got those headlines that made people think we got something out of it. For this one, I don't know. You're going to need people to really think. Snapchat up 14% on that activist investor investing in them. You're going to need people to feel that we actually did get something here. And I don't know if that's how people will interpret it. Waiting for Trump's tweet, time to buy stocks. I agree. Which I have a feeling on April 9th, he's going to want to do this as well. I have a feeling he's going to want to do this shit as well. Again on April 9th. But who knows? Who freaking knows? Do we have some more Buffett stuff? Let's see if we can find that. I mean, the main takes we heard from him about Apple, we don't see too much more from what Buffett said. Let's look at a couple other lines. Marco Rubio, we have some clips from him yesterday talking about the war/special operation.
Fail. That we are dealing with a 47-year-old regime that still has a lot of people involved in it who aren't necessarily big fans of diplomacy or peace.
And if it fails, the war expands?
What's that? I'm sorry?
If it fails, the war expands?
Well, the war is about this operation, okay? And that's what this is. It's about very specific objectives. The president laid them out on the first night of the operation. Fail.
It's so funny, the semantics they're all doing, like the war, excursion, special operation. Like, rhetorically, they're trying very hard, when in reality they could have just called it a war and said we're going to win the war, but they don't want to call it a war because that has a negative connotation. But they keep saying war, so I mean, even Rubio doesn't know exactly what to say, and he's tripping over his words because obviously they don't really have the exact understanding of what they're even doing in the region.
These people are lunatics. They are insane. They are religious zealots who can never be allowed to possess a nuclear weapon because they have an apocalyptic vision of the future. And all of their neighbors know that, by the way, which is why all of their neighbors have been supportive of the efforts we're conducting.
You call them lunatics, but the president just had this post where he says we're in discussions with a new and more reasonable regime. Let me try to pin you down on that. Who is this new and more reasonable regime? Is the United States in direct contact with them?
Well, I'm not going to disclose to you who those people are because it probably would get them in trouble with some other groups of people inside of Iran. Look, there's some fractures going on there internally. These people.
See, now that's an issue. That's an issue. There are some fractures going on in Iran, which makes it harder for the market to be like, are you actually negotiating with the right faction? Or are you negotiating with the one that doesn't have any of the power? Which has also, we've seen multiple headlines of the United States talking to people through intermediaries that quite frankly don't represent the IRGC or the Iranian government, which is who you have to be negotiating with the people that are not only have military control, but have obviously control over the Strait of Hormuz. And no one exactly knows if that's the case. Yeah, that's the most ironic. This quote unquote special military operation is being led by the Department of War. And I get it. If you say it's a war, you need congressional approval, but they've said it's a war 1,000 times. Trump, Rubio, Vance, they've all said it's a war. They've all used that terminology, even if they then say it's a special military operation. It's being led by the Department of War. And they keep saying the war is done, even though they don't have congressional approval. So that again adds a lot of confusion and he said, she said to the entire mix of how the markets are supposed to interpret this. We're getting a red candle right here, 642, right back down to 640.7. 640.7. We can just hold 640 today, I'd be happy. If we can just hold 640 today, I think a lot of us would be, even 638, 639 would be happy. Amit, I think calling it a war is illegal without Congress. Yes, but they've called it a war 1 billion times. Like, have we not listened to all of them say we are winning the war? I mean, it's happened over and over and over again. So that's why it's just ironic. It's like, yeah, they're not supposed to be saying that, but they keep saying that. And then you have the American people saying, okay, so if the American people are not going through the congressional code to figure out if it's legal or not to say it. We're just being briefed by Hegseth every morning. And when he says it's a war, it's like, well, wait a second. Okay. I guess we have to interpret it as a war. I mean, you command F war in the freaking transcript of the briefing they had this morning. 120 times they've said the word war. Like, obviously, they're not referring to it every single time in the context of this, but it's like, this is why people are just so freaking confused about what's happening. Ondas up 4%, Open Door still up 3% as well. Indonesia announces fuel rationing, orders government employees to work from home 1 day a week. Wow. I mean, we kind of said this might happen, folks, when the IEA came out last week and suggested to work from home and stop traveling. It looks like Indonesia is now mandating that, ordering government employees to work from home 1 day a week. Notice that's an order. That's not a suggestion. I mean, imagine if that happened in the United States. And imagine that happened on the basis of saving oil. Like, that would be crazy, bro. People would be like, really? We can't drive our car to work because we have to ration fuel? Like, that's just like, yeah, it's obviously a headwind for Grab. And the higher oil prices are just not good for any of the international stocks in the region. But like, the idea of even imagining that happening in a developed part of the world, people would lose their mind, bro. If you said, oh, yeah, you're not allowed to go to the restaurant because we need people to. I mean, that's like, that's what happened during COVID. People went crazy. But that's how important oil is. VG getting a little bit of a pump right there. This is why when people said, oh, that headline from the IEA was fear-mongering, it was not fear-mongering. It was them making a very valid argument that there's only so much fuel on the planet. And if it starts going up in terms of price and we can't keep producing or storing it anywhere because we have a freaking proxy war in every part of the Middle East, then yeah, you're going to have to at some point stop using as much because that's you're going to have to degrow, which is really bad for GDP, which is definitely not good for the stock market. So it's one of those things that kind of might be seeing happening in Indonesia right now. That's incredible, dude. A lot of schools in Pakistan went fully remote too to save on fuel and transport costs. Proxy, not war. Yeah. Goodness, man. Iran's nuclear facilities are deeply buried in a way that would make them difficult to raid for their enriched uranium stockpiles, Trump told CBS News. Dude, that's it. That's what he's going to have to sell to the American people. That we messed up their military so well and their nuclear facilities got hit so hard that they're not going to be able to enrich uranium for a long time. That's it. That's the argument. You make up some framework of a deal, get the IRGC or whoever you're negotiating with to affirm it, keep the Ayatollah in power because they're not going to get rid of him. No ground troops. We kill their nukes. And then boom, that's it. The war's over. I mean, like that would have to be the easiest off-ramp, which is, I'm saying easy in quotation marks because it's not easy to get that to happen, but that would be the quickest way, I think, for this to be over. It's just we have no idea if that's actually going to happen. We quote unquote stopped their nukes 6 months ago. Yeah, I mean, you got a lot of people questioning Midnight Hammer now. Was that even effective? Right? Like the whole point of Midnight Hammer was to decimate their nuclear capabilities, and then less than a year later, we go to war with them over their nuclear facilities. I mean, that outside of the whole Iranian liberation and stuff, that was the #1 reason that Trump and Rubio painted as why we had to go to war with them. So I guess in the past 8 months, the nuclear facilities were not decimated enough to the point where, if you believe that was the logic for the war, we had enough intelligence showing that it was getting a lot better. So unless this one is more effective at least conveying that we achieved our strategic objective, then obviously, the markets were still going to be worried about it. Trump did tell the Financial Times that he wants the oil. I think he was kind of, Trump says stuff just to say stuff. I think he kind of just said it to say it in that Financial Times article. I don't think he literally meant we are going for a full-on ground invasion and we are going to take over the oil for the next 10 years in this country. I don't think he wants to do that. I don't think he's going to get approval to do that. But he did mention, yeah, we want the oil. It's just you're going to get into it. If Trump is afraid of sending ships through the Strait of Hormuz, because that would obviously create a military interaction with the Iranians that are protecting the Strait, how the hell is he going to take over Karg Island? I mean, if we are not ready to get into some level of confrontation, which there's going to be some, to get a ship through the Strait of Hormuz, there is no way we're going to invade an island and have a military confrontation with boots on the ground. Like, he just hasn't proved he's willing to go that far yet. And maybe he will. But then every morning when he's saying the war is going to end soon, it makes you think, no, this guy wants to get out of here and he doesn't care anymore. And he wants to leave. And the fact that I have to flip-flop so much in interpreting what he's trying to do is why this is so confusing to the markets, is why the markets are flip-flopping back and forth every single day, because they also don't exactly know how to navigate it. Nvidia is still holding 170.5, S&P back to 641. So we are at least not giving up the 640s here. We didn't touch 639 again ever since that little V shape that we had. Baron Trump will take over Karg Island. Oh my gosh. Well, that is what we got today, folks. I think that's pretty much it. Oil's still at 104, which is confusing how the S&P is holding these gains with oil being up, but I will take it. And hopefully these Trump quotes materialize into something real around not only prices coming down, but obviously a more serious chance of a ceasefire and eventual negotiation to end this all. But as of now, this is what we're dealing with. That's a pretty big headline. Indonesia announces a fuel rationing, ordering government employees to work from home 1 day a week. So they are obviously feeling that. I mean, it's just, if oil continues, it's just not sustainable. It is, and that's going to be very bad for Southeast Asia in general. And then you have other regions that are going to be affected by it. And then you have this Trump CBS quote: "We will make a decision regarding Iran's stockpile of enriched uranium. They are deeply buried in terms of their facilities in a way that would make it difficult for them to raid their uranium stockpiles." Yeah, that's correct. We did have a rationing of gas in the U.S. during Carter. That is 1,000% correct. That'd be crazy if that happened again. But that would be pretty crazy. All right, I'll be off for like 10 more minutes. Let me just talk about the meetup, and then we'll be out for the day. So that's done with the market open. We're back for the market close. And we will have Jason on, and we'll get into Technical Tuesday and see what we got going on. In terms of the meetup, it was awesome. Again, thank you everybody for being here. If you were in the meetup and you're in the chat right now, let me know. I know RF Andy is right here. He's begging to stay green. It was awesome seeing him and his wife, and it was awesome in general interacting and meeting so many people. I mean, again, dude, the meetups are really special. You get to actually see people in person, talk to them, realize that they have a life, a family, kids, that, you know, the markets affect the trajectory of their lives as well. And many of them are just so grateful for the past couple of years of being able to do well in the markets, and are now trying to navigate and protect a lot of that newfound wealth that a lot of people have found as well. We are not having a meetup in Seattle this year, but we did have someone come from Seattle. Shout out to Himanshu. He was there at New York and LA. So he flew from Seattle to New York, and he flew from Seattle to LA, which whenever someone tells me they flew down for the meetup, it really is very humbling, because for someone to take their time, money, and energy to buy a ticket and to travel just for an event like this, it really shows how much they want to be part of the community. Michelle, Austin, Ray, June, Doug, Sid was there. He was in every meetup since Miami. It was awesome seeing him again. It was just really cool. You know, the coolest thing about this also is my sister and cousin were there. My sister, she asked me after the meetup yesterday. She was like, "Are you not overstimulated? Are you like, how are you feeling? Like, what wasn't this like so crazy?" And the honest answer was no. There was zero overstimulation or nervousness or like massive levels of anxiety before the meetup. There's obviously a little bit of a butterfly, but you know, butterflies in your stomach, but nothing that intense. And then after it, there was zero level of overstimulation after it was done, after 6 hours of talking to 300 people. And the reason for that is because now we've done it 7 times, 5 times by myself, 2 times with the team. And trust me, after the first meetup in New York of January 2025, it was crazy. I was like on a high for the next week, because just like seeing that many people in person, talking to them, learning about their life, like and like, you know, having them tell you how much they've been watching the channel for years. Like it's a real high, because, you know, you're so grateful that people actually care that much about the content, and you're realizing the content's having a big impact. But that same high isn't there anymore. And I think that's a good thing, because now it's more so a question of being able to reach as many people as possible and getting better with listening to as many different perspectives as possible. I mean, when I talk to someone, I think, you know, I say, "Hello, what's your name? Who are you? Why are you here?" to 300 people every time at this event. You have to take in a lot of different perspectives, a lot of different emotions, a lot of different people. Just like when you go streaming every morning, right? Like when the first couple times you stream, it's a little nerve-wracking and stuff, but after you do it every single day, it becomes a part of you. And I think these meetups are just becoming a part of who I am, and my ability to talk, meet, ingest information, learn different perspectives. It's becoming more natural to me. And I really like that, because I think we're going to have a lot more of these and be able to do these at a bigger scale. And quite frankly, you know, that euphoria shouldn't happen, because then your head gets too big. You know, you can't have this level of massive overstimulation by seeing all these people, because then you start thinking you're too good. And you never want to think you're too good. You want to always be humbled. And just hearing all these different stories and perspectives is also very humbling. But it was interesting. My sister asked me that question, because what she was feeling, and she wasn't even like the main star of the event, right? She wasn't even the person that was like talking to everybody. But the fact that she felt that, it was the exact same thing that I felt after the first New York meetup in January of last year. And I imagine because she felt that, a lot of other people that were just there at the meetup felt that same level of high and same level of euphoria, because it's really special to just be part of something bigger than yourself. And it's cool. You know, it's cool that a lot of people felt it. The first trillionaire, shout out to him. We did go to Olive Garden after the meetup. even though we should have a meetup at Olive Garden one day. But the hotel was nice. Yeah, the hotel was really good. The hotel was $170 a night. It looked like it was a $270 a night hotel. I was a little worried if the hotel would be nice. Like, the hotel was good, bro. The hotel was legit. And I think the one in Chicago is going to be as well. The Chicago one is $190 a night, and that's the best discounted rate we could get. Again, the link is on my website for Chicago. I'll put the link right here in the chat. But the hotel was really good. It was very convenient. The thing about New York is it was a very extravagant venue, but we also had double the amount of people in New York, so we kind of needed something so big. But in New York, it was also really crowded, and it was kind of hard just to walk around. In this place, it was less crowded. There was more space relative to the number of people that were there, and everyone was in the hotel, so it was very easy to just like navigate it. So I kind of like this hotel vibe. Singapore will not be in a hotel. Chicago will be. But yeah, I like the convenience of it, and I thought that it was a great way to do this. And Jess did a great job at structuring the meetup along with Angelo, who was helping at the meetup. A lot of you guys got to meet him. We didn't have any security issues. There was nothing crazy. I mean, a lot of these, we've invested a lot in security and infrastructure. That's like the number one thing to make sure people are safe. And most people are very reasonable and just happy to be there. So I thought it was really fun. Vox says your sister was beautiful. Vox, I appreciate that. My sister could not give me a compliment after the meetup. I was like, a little birdie told me that you're proud of me. She was like, who told you that? I was like, actually multiple people told me that you're very proud of me. Apparently you told all these people you're proud. And she was like, I said nothing of that manner. So I assume my sister is a little bit proud, even though she won't admit it. Steve was not with us at Olive Garden. Steve left the day before. So unfortunately, Steve was not with it. I don't think Steve would have wanted to go to Olive Garden. I would have forced him to go with us if he stayed. But he did not stay. The food was not Olive Garden catering. We went to Olive Garden the day after the meetup, I should clarify. So, it was not the night of the meetup. But the food was also really good. I mean, I asked a bunch of people there. They liked the food. So the food was decent. It was hotel food, but it was pretty decent, very diverse. I didn't get to eat any of it, but I think people liked it. And, overall, I thought it was cool. I thought it was pretty good. People thought Irwin was Stock Talk. Irwin owns one stock, and that is Rocket Lab. So Irwin is not Stock Talk. But Irwin is super tall. Yeah, Carlos was there from the Finance Junkies. He couldn't stay too early, but I got to chill with him for about an hour, and it was really cool to connect with him. He has two beautiful little kids now. They're like 4 and 2, I think. And when I was talking to him, he had no kids when we were doing our podcast 4 years ago. So, the fact that he has 2 kids now is it's amazing. And it was really cool. It was really cool to connect with people. Star Buccaneers has been in the chat for like 4 years. Very, very nice to connect with Mr. Star Buccaneers. It was really cool to see people with these usernames that I've been like RF Andy. I've seen that username forever. And it's like, oh, you're RF Andy. It was cool. Cycle Time. Cycle Time was awesome. This guy has so much energy. Cycle freaking Time. I mean, the energy on this guy was amazing. I'll post the pictures once I get all of them. Some of them are on X. But Mr. Cycle Time was incredible. I mean, absolutely love the energy, dude. So happy you came. It was fun, man. It was awesome. It was a great, great time. So Chicago will be next. It'll be the next one we do May 9th. We have about a month and a half to wait until we do it. We are not going to be having an Iran meetup anytime soon. So hopefully, maybe one day if things get a little safer. But as of now, I think the Middle East, it would honestly be Dubai. That would be the easiest place to do a meetup. And a lot of people have asked for that. But, Middle East is a little bit in a tough situation right now. So it'll take some time. But eventually, hopefully we get there. So, yeah, it was awesome. I really appreciate everyone that was there. We'll have the pictures coming out soon. Again, the point of these meetups really is just to remember that there is something much bigger that we are building. And it's not just about making money. It's not just about the stock market. It's about a community being together in that journey. It's not about individual stocks. It's not about the daily fluctuations, even though Micron goes red again. What the heck is going on with this name? It cannot hold on to any of its green. But it's all of us observing the daily fluctuations together instead of obsessing over them. And that's why we're here. And quite frankly, this is a game you can play for. I mean, Buffett's 96, and he's talking about, the stock market on CNBC today. Bitcoin getting hit right now as well. MicroStrategy going down at the same time. And the fact that Nvidia losing 170, the fact that Buffett at 96 is eager to talk about the markets. He's not even the CEO of Berkshire Hathaway anymore, but he still wants to talk and engage and discuss. It's just so cool. It is so freaking cool. Arthur, are you the Arthur at the meetup? I think you are. Is this your username? Are you the Arthur that came with us to Olive Garden? Arthur is one of the funniest people I have met in my entire life. I mean, this guy is funny, bro. Like, I thought I was funny. Arthur is funny. So, Arthur, if that's you, it was awesome hanging out with you. I mean, so some of these people that are coming to the meetups, you know, they're not even mods, but they've been to so many meetups at this point that we're all just hanging out together after the meetups because they've been to, you've seen them so many times. You're like, all right, let's go hang out. Let's go get dinner. Let's go do something. And I am making new friends just as much as other people are making new friends. So, okay, that is our Arthur, who is with us in Olive Garden. So, Strait of Hormuz meetup would be crazy. We would have a lot of energy for that meetup, though, because there's oil there. You know what I'm saying? So, we would have a lot of energy in the Strait of Hormuz meetup because we would have a lot of oil. That was so bad. I really need my soundboard, dude. I need my soundboard. I'm gonna try this week. I have it. I just haven't hooked it up. I'm gonna stop being lazy about the soundboard over the weekend. Hook it up because I need it for these moments. I really do. Parzival, thank you for the $200 super chat. You did not need to send that. Deeply, deeply appreciate it. As a full-time solo trader, I didn't realize how much I needed a community like this until I found it. The market talk is great, but honestly, just having sharp people to talk to during the day has been the biggest value. Huge respect to Amit and everyone here. Thank you, man, for that super chat. You really did not need to send that. Deeply, deeply appreciate it. Yeah, I agree, right? It's very cliche, but if you are with people and discussing with other people the ups and downs and the swings of the market, it just makes it easier to navigate. It really makes it easier to navigate. It makes it more fun to navigate, especially when shit hits. I mean, so many people of you told me at the meetup that you were happy that I streamed on Friday because Friday was very ugly. And just being a voice that was there in the morning to coincide with and to cry with and to, react to, that's part of the whole thing that we're building, the whole journey that we're on. So, I love doing this. I love doing it. I would not give it up for the world. I really do enjoy it. There's some things in life where you find your calling, and I've struggled to find that over the past 10 years, but over the past 3 years, I think I kind of figured out to an extent what I really want to be doing. And once you figure it out, you capture a little bit of momentum. You don't let it go. You do not let it go because there's so few opportunities in life to actually find something you're good at and actually excel at it and grow it and then build it into something. And the point of all the stress for the meetups is when you see 180 people in a room together, happy and excited to learn from each other. Like, you just realize all the hard work was worth it. And the connections that I have personally built from doing that, it is more valuable than I could ever imagine. Matt Hollis, I talked about him yesterday. This guy's incredible. Took us to the Lakers game, got us a party bus. I'm like, who does that? Gets a party bus for 18 of your friends that he doesn't even personally know, and then take you to a freaking Lakers game. Like, who does that? People don't do that. Like, people don't just give you experiences like that. And the suite was crazy, bro. The amount of food that was there. Oh, I didn't even show you guys this picture. Steve did not eat anything from this cart, but literally kid in a candy store. Apparently, if you have a suite at the Lakers, they get you this massive dessert bar. Massive dessert bar. And you can just have any dessert you want. Like, it literally was like, dude, this is like a dream. This is a fantasy that we can pick any freaking dessert, red velvet cake, ice cream, brownies, because, we got access to that suite. And so it was just really cool. My mind was blown. I was yelling as soon as I walked into the suite because I've watched basketball for years and I've never, I zoomed in on LeBron right there. I've never been that close to seeing LeBron in person. Just being able to witness that was like, man, it was a hell of an experience. And my sister got to go there. My cousin got to go there. And that was the other cool thing about it. The fact that I got to bring that experience because of Matt, which is right there in the chat, Mr. Matt Hollis, to my friends, that feels really nice to be able to bring your friends along for the ride and to have a new friend like Mr. Matt Hollis, who was able to set that up for us. So deeply, deeply appreciate everyone who came to the meetup. Meant the world. We are going to keep doing it. Chicago will be next. Hopefully the markets recover going into Chicago, but I've basically convinced myself this is the way that I'm going to be able to hang out with my friends multiple times a year, make new friends, and travel and see the world. And if we get to do this in a way that helps build the brand, even if we break even on these meetups, because again, we are not doing this for a profit, then that is the goal. That is the plan. And we're going to keep expanding and seeing what we can do. So that's it. Very exciting for it. Thank you all for being here. And we will be back on the market close later and see if we can continue some of this momentum again. Parzival, thank you for the super chat. You did not need to give that, but deeply, deeply appreciate you sending that as well. And yeah, it was a really cool experience. It was a really cool experience. Amit, I've always been kind of nervous to attend a meetup. I'm very new to stocks and investing. I haven't done anything yet. Would you still recommend attending? Yes, 50%. And I'm making this number up, but it's my kind of gauge from the people I talked to. 50% of the people that came to the meetup in LA, they started investing last year. Like a lot of the people that came up to me was like, dude, I found you 4 months ago. And I'm just like, wow, 4 months ago and you still came, right? Like there's not even that big of a connection between you and the content yet or the community, but people wanted to be there because people don't have, like, they just don't have friends or family that you can call up to talk about. And to be able to experience and get those connections at an event like this, in a region that's close to them. A lot of people live so close to the event as well. It was like a 20, 30-minute drive. It was worth it. So yeah, if you don't invest or if you've barely started investing, I would still come through just to be able to learn and get contact with a lot of other people. And hopefully that inspires you to create a catalyst to begin the journey to get deeper into the investing ecosystem. And, that's also, it's easier when you have a community around you. A lot of us start as solo investors and we do it out of necessity, either for our own financial future or our family's financial future. If you can avoid some of the mistakes that a lot of people make, which are, very easy to avoid. Everyone's got to pay their own tuition, but there's some shit you just like, you don't need to buy VCX at $587, valuing Anthropic at 20 trillion. And Amit from 2018 might have done that. So being able to avoid some of those mistakes because you have a community with you on your side is also very valuable and helpful. All right, that's it for me. Thank you all for being here. Deeply, deeply appreciate it. I think Steve just went live. I know he's going to start going live more often. I'm linking his stream right there. So what do we spam to Steve? It's got to be something from the meetup we can spam him with. What did he say at the meetup? What can we spam him with? I think we'll do cake. Cake is too basic. Let's do Kit Kats because I was listening to Steve yesterday and he didn't even know the Kit Kat headline. That'll actually be, let's do Kit Kats. He was like, what are you guys talking? Why are you guys mentioning Kit Kat? So let's do Kit Kat. That is what we spam Steve with. There it is. Kit Kats. Well, let's spam his stream with Kit Kats, and Steve will be making an announcement very soon that I think people will be excited about. So hopefully he puts out that video soon and you'll get to see more from Steve. All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. We'll be back on the market close. We'll have Jason Technical Tuesday, and hopefully we can hold on to 640 on the S&P and stay green. Thank you, everybody. I will see you guys later on the market close. All right, everybody. Have a good one.